I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. And to begin, I'll just say, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Reading School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in this order. Now, I know some people might be listening on a NORCAM. If you do want to call in to be present, you can call in to 559-931-2656. The PIN number is 731-106-430#. Now, just to be clear, to begin, we'll start with just taking attendance. And since we did that beforehand, I'll say that all members of the school committee are present, as well as our superintendent and the assistant superintendent, Michael Connolly. Now, before beginning, I would just like to go a little bit off topic here and just say that I'd like to recognize the contributions of a person who just recently passed away, Robert Masseri. Bob Masseri was a long-term member of many committees in North Reading. He served on the school committee for a number of years. He served with the select board, the board of selectmen before that, and many other committees in town for, I think, more than 30 years. It's a great loss to North Reading overall. I can tell you that Bob was an advocate for the schools in whatever position he was in. He was a creative thinker. I do want to give the committee, if anybody knows him, a couple of minutes to just kind of, comment on him, and then maybe have a moment of silence before we continue. But I would just begin by saying, I met Bob when I was considering running for the school committee. I wanted to learn a little bit more about how town government worked. And so one person had recommended that I speak with Mr. Masseri. The best I can say is when you talk to Bob Masseri and asked him how things work in town government, especially how finance works, it's sort of like turning on the fire hose and trying to take a drink. Like, I was on the phone with him and I honestly didn't understand half of what he was saying. It was just so overwhelming, but the knowledge that man possessed and the service that he gave to this town, cannot be measured. And, I just want to thank him for all of his service throughout the years. And I know there's a lot of new members on the school committee, so please, if you don't know him, don't feel like you have any obligation to speak. But I know that Patrick and maybe Janine might want to have a couple of comments. So maybe Patrick, you had mentioned you might want to say something.
Sure. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate the opportunity to recognize Mr. Masseri, who just contributed so much to our school community. Over the 10 years that I worked with him, I'd say he was certainly present through financial conversations, but what sticks out for me most is his contributions to the building project and the school building project. So many times when I was working with the technology for that building, Bob would bring up his personal experiences, as well as his personal expertise, as well as his professional judgment and his knowledge of town government in order to make solutions, to think outside the box. Everything from our wireless networking and infrastructure to the phone systems. He had so many thoughts and opinions, and he was always thinking ahead, always thinking of having enough redundancies and enough supports in there to help our buildings be the best they could be. He was always someone that had new and creative ideas that he wanted to throw out for solutions to long-term problems, and coming up with plans that could work at the long term. And he helped us out in so many ways. And he's certainly celebrated in town and he's well known, but he also is an unsung hero, because I don't think a lot of folks know how much that he really did to contribute to our schools. So I appreciate the moment to thank him for all that he did. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Anybody else? Janine, anybody else have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo both of what you guys said. He did establish a lot of well thought out meetings and programs within the town. FinCom was one of them, CIT, Community Impact, and the Capital Improvement Plan, the CIPC. All, bring brainchilds of Bob Messeri. So he will be sorely missed, and my heart goes out to his family.
Mr. Buckley, if I could just comment as well. So this is Michael Conley. Yes, I just wanted to echo the comments of Dr. Daly and Ms. Ambriano, but I've had the pleasure of working with Bob for a number of years, really through the finance planning team, and he was just really a key member of that team for so many years. I'm sure he was probably involved in the creation of that finance planning team format, which has served the community, both the municipal government side and the school department side, really, really well for a number of years. And he was a key member. And when Bob spoke, everyone certainly listened, because he always thought very intelligently and creatively to try to make things work, as really a member of the select board on that committee. But he always spoke in a way to try to make things work for certainly both for the town government side, but certainly on the school department side as well. And that was something I know myself and the superintendents that have served on that committee so appreciated, and he really did so much, as Dr. Daly said, really behind the scenes, to help the schools and the community and just kind of make the numbers work. And it wasn't always easy, and those conversations got heated, and Bob always had a very calm, patient, and really intelligent approach to all those conversations. So my heart goes out to his family, and I really appreciated working with him for so long.
Thank you very much, Mr. Connolly, and everybody. If there's any other comments, and I would just say that we're going to talk a lot about budget issues tonight, and having somebody that thinks like Bob Messeri, it's going to be hard to replace, and so leaves a big void. But so I'd just like to take just a couple minutes of a moment of silence in recognition of Bob Messeri's life and the commitment to the schools. Thank you, everyone. And I will warn everybody, it is shower time at the Buckley House, so if you hear anything in the background, I apologize. I'll try to stay on mute as much as I can, but I'm going to begin tonight with the public input. So I think there are a few members of the public that might be joining us tonight. If anybody would like to comment on anything that is not on the agenda already, you will have opportunities to speak about anything on the agenda. But if anybody has any topics they would like to bring up, please raise them now. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to the student report. And we are fortunate enough to have a student, Shivani Shrinketh, joining us, class of 2022. If you'd like to give a report, we would love to hear how things are going for you.
Yep, thank you so much. Hope you're all doing safe and well in these uncertain times. As this meeting's representative, I'll just be giving a quick update on how online distance learning has been going, with some examples as well. So basically, as a quick rundown, high school classes have been running from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. with the 4-class-a-day rotation schedule. We have green days on Mondays, so that's 4 of our classes, and then we also have those on Thursdays, and then we have gold days on Tuesdays and Fridays, and that's the other 4. Wednesdays are now office hours, so students have been finishing up classwork in this free time, talking with teachers and catching up on learning material they might have missed. And then for you to get an idea of how classes are being held, I'll just summarize one of my classes. In U.S. history, we basically start the class with a Google Meet, where my teacher informs us of the agenda and goals to meet for the class. Then he either shares his screen to play a video clip on the topic or just teaches for 15 minutes virtually. Then we hang up and then go to a reading article on our own and answer analysis questions. Class usually finishes with an exit ticket, which is just an online Google form with some multiple choice questions about the class content. Then a suggestion box where we can also give feedback on class productivity. Teachers are also finding creative ways to incorporate group work when possible. In my AP Environmental Science course, we've been doing shared mini projects where we kind of answer open response questions by ourselves. post our answers on this online platform called Peer Grade, and then have other students give us feedback and a mock grade to help us prepare for the AP exam. In addition, with the school ready to make accommodations and take suggestions as students see fit, I have been collecting some summaries from students on their opinions and suggestions for distance learning and any ideas they have to make it better. And I've been giving those summaries directly to Dr. Daly so he can take these concerns into consideration. Finally, clubs are working currently on virtual officer nominations, and many people who are interested in running for positions like treasurer or secretary for specific clubs are sending their nomination forms to current club leaders in order to be chosen for next year. It seems as if the school is adapting quite well to our needs, and we seem to be having a successful phase 2 from the points of view of students.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So do any members have any?
Thank you.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Mr. McGowan?
I guess I was going to ask Shivani how you think the AP prep is going.
I definitely think AP prep is going pretty well right now. In my APES class, we've been focusing all of our class time on practicing FRQs for this new adapted version of the AP exam. So the new version is basically no multiple choice for APES at least, and we're doing just FRQs, which are free response questions. So my teacher's been doing a really good job of getting us ready both with the online aspect of it as well as the content. So we've been kind of balancing the two with class time.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Excellent. So I have a couple questions. So I mean, number one, the first I've heard, you mentioned that you get student, reviews from other classmates. Is that in all of your classes or just some of the classes?
This is just something I started doing this weekend. I checked in with Dr. Daly asking him if he wanted to hear some of suggestions from other students instead of just me. And he said, sure, just to let him know. So far I've only collected 2 from one of my English classes, but basically it's just these little mini summaries of some of their suggestions or ideas or their reflections on online learning. And I've just sent that to Dr. Daly so he can see how some of the other students think it's going as well.
It's wonderful. How are your parents adjusting to this? I mean, have you had any technical issues or?
I think my parents are doing right. Basically, we've all just been staying in our respective rooms throughout the entire day. But technical difficulty-wise, I don't think so. I know some of my friends had excuse me, a couple Wi-Fi problems, but I've been okay so far.
Good. Well, thank you very much. And I don't know if there's any other comments or questions. I don't think so. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight, and you are welcome to sign off, or you can stay in if you'd like as well. So really appreciate thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on. We have no continued business. First order of business is going to be a COVID-19 update. And I know that we also have the senior class president here, but I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Daly first to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and then introduce our senior class president.
Great, thank you so much, Mr. Buckley. So the latest updates is I think we've covered, but perhaps not in an open session. So I just want to share that we are currently closed until June 29th. That was extended by the governor. We continue with our remote learning. We are following new guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that provides additional what they're calling power standards or essential standards. So they're looking at the standards for the year, helping us to think about which standards are most essential for all students to learn and to go deeper into between now and the end of the year to best prepare them for advancement to the next grade. And so those standards were provided for just about all of the core academic areas. We have followed up with the department to provide some additional standards for those areas that were not covered in the first draft. And they're going to continue to provide some more information for us as we support our students moving forward. So we have provided, I do want to take a moment just to recognize this is Teacher Appreciation Week. We certainly want to thank all of our teachers for what they're doing in these unprecedented times. They're really doing a fantastic job of learning new skills. I want to give a special shout out to our digital learning team who have really stepped up to the occasion. And I I received one of the most pleasant emails I think I've ever received from one teacher just praising another digital learning teacher about the amount of time and effort and dedication and patience that she's put in. And I think that's true for our entire staff and Dr. Downs, who's leading them. They've really done a fantastic job and risen to the occasion. Taking those Wednesdays, as Shivani mentioned, to do planning, professional development, the courses and workshops that are being offered daily by our digital learning team for folks to improve and enhance their practice are truly making this successful, and they're going to pay dividends because all of these skills can be used in the future in sort of a hybrid format. So we're very excited about that, and I wanted to give that information out. I think most of the other information related to the closure will be communicated throughout the rest of the evening through some other discussions. I will say that we did start back with our custodians full time again today, working a full shift. We're doing one whole shift with everyone on there, and they're kind of staggered in their locations and maintaining safe social distancing and best practices, but that did begin today. But I think the big topic that we've talked a lot about recently, and Mr. Buckley, you've been involved in these conversations along with myself, Mr. LaPrette, and others, is about graduation. And I think that having Emily here, she's done a great job herself and the other leaders of the senior class to represent the student voice, which I know that the committee values quite a bit. And so I did ask her to come tonight to join us to talk a little bit about this process. We can't give away all of the details and information at the moment because there's some things that we still need to get approved, obviously, by the town officials. And there is a meeting on that this week that we're going to carry on. But Emily's going to share the process and what she's done with her leadership working with the administration. So, Emily, are you with us?
Hi, I'm here.
Excellent. So, great. Good to see you. And if you just want to give a report and share out some of the information that we've worked on, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So hi, my name's Emily Cooperstein. I'm the senior class president. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. And also a huge thanks to Dr. Daly, Mr. Hain, Mr. LaPrette, and our two class advisors, Ms. Gagnon and Mr. McIntosh. They've been amazing with understanding how difficult this is for all students, but especially the seniors right now, and have been really supportive with all of our ideas. So the first part of this planning process was the 4 class officers sent out a survey to our classmates, asking them what they thought was most important to them of a graduation and senior week. And they responded that their 4 most important parts of this were being with classmates, being with their immediate family, getting our diplomas, and being in a cap and gown, which all of those are very understandable. So we've been working with the administration and coming up with plans that would incorporate all of these ideas while still keeping everyone safe and being in accordance to the federal and local state and local guidelines that have been set forth. So we're currently developing ideas for a 2-part graduation because we thought that we designed this 2-part plan because we knew it would be important that all students would be able to attend some sort of a graduation ceremony in June while still incorporating events that are very important to North Reading High School seniors, traditions for either a late July or early August date. So part 1 of this event, again, these are all still being worked out, but part 1 of this event would be some sort of a rolling rally where at the end we would be getting our diplomas. We're working closely with the police to work out these details, so we don't really exactly have them all right now. And part 2 would be some sort of a traditional senior week activity, again, still in accordance with the federal, state, and local guidelines that have been set forward at this point. Some of these ideas have included a barbecue or a drive-in movie night. And we were able to reserve the Danversport prom location for a date in late July. Again, we're really not totally sure if this will be possible at all, but we're very hopeful that it will be, especially after Governor Baker's press conference today. And then this would end up with, at the end of the week, have some sort of cap and gown event that would have the traditional graduation ceremony, again, contingent upon the ability to do so in a safe manner. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Emily. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this is your graduation, but I appreciate that you guys are trying to, make the best out of it. I think from my perspective, graduation is about the seniors. It's not about the administration. It's not about the school committee. It's about you. It's about recognizing you guys. And so I think I probably speak for the committee and for others just in saying that, as long as it's safe and we're not, infecting people or spreading disease, at the end of the day, we really want this to be something that, you guys will enjoy as best it can, that you'll remember. And so I know from my perspective, whatever you guys want that we can do, we're happy to do. I was joking, if I'll do whatever, to hand diplomas out. I mean, whatever you guys need, we're happy to do. So I appreciate you kind of being the middle of the wheel, trying to, coordinate everybody. And I understand that, there's probably 200 different ideas out there. And so it's a lot of work. And, I just appreciate you stepping up and, being a true leader of the class to try to help plan this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions for Emily? No. Okay. Patrick, any comments?
Yeah, I just want to thank Emily again for her leadership and her communication. And I think we have some great ideas. She's put in a lot of time and effort and you've just done a great job advocating for your classmates, Emily. It's true leadership that I'm sure you didn't see being a part of the role when you took on the role of class president, right? And it's certainly different, but I think you've really shined, and I think you're going to have a great opportunity to share some more great memories with your classmates. Different than you expected, but unique in their own way. And like I said to you the other day, there may be some things that come of this that become a part of traditions moving forward, and we'll always look back and say this all started with the class of 2020. So you never know, and this is all about making the best of the situation, making lemonade, as I like to say, from lemons, and I think that's what we're going to do. So I'm really excited about the next steps. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thank you very much, Emily. If there's no other comments or questions, you can sign off, or you're welcome to stay if you'd like. Okay, we're going to move on to the school calendar. And so, Dr. Daly, are you going to present on this topic, I assume?
I am. So I just wanted to share this quickly, but essentially what I wanted to share with you is because we have worked through the April vacation. We took 2 days on April vacation, just as a refresher for what we've done. The Monday holiday, and then also we took that Friday of April vacation. That would bring us, with our regularly scheduled 185th day, would be on the 24th of June. Because we took those 3 days, we could do a couple of different things. One would be to take another day later in the year, another Friday day, or another idea would be to just sort of power through. And I brought this to the teachers union. I also brought it to the administrative council. And I think at this point, the suggestion from the group is to continue through and to end on the 19th, which is the Friday of the third week of June. So the idea here is there's 2 days. There is the, I believe the 24th of May and the 22nd of May, and also the 5th of June. Those 2 days right now are scheduled to be half days, and we would be changing the schedule so those would no longer be half days. Those days would now just be regular remote learning days as we have planned. That June 5th day, which is slated as graduation, we will have some kind of ceremony. Our plan is to have something on or around that day. But those 2 half days would just be remote learning days like the others. We would take the Memorial Day Monday holiday, and then we would just, as I said, we would just move right through, and we would get out on the 19th of June. So that's the recommendation of the Administrative Council and the North Reading Teachers Association agrees with that as well.
Excellent. I mean, I agree with it as well. I don't know what other people's thoughts are.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree as well. Although I guess is it possible to think of of having a reserve if necessary, or do we think that once we've set this, we should, keep it that way no matter what? I mean, obviously barring some weather thing or something, but
yeah, I
think your options open.
Sure. Yeah, there's a part of me that wants, and I do still really like the idea of having that extra flexibility, seeing where we are in a month or so and what we're feeling. But certain pieces with the end of school, having that date sort of established, I think is important as we're writing some letters to folks and trying to make some different decisions based on leaves of absence or things like that. I think if we had to, if we ran into a situation, we could do something with the day, just like if we needed to call, a snow or something, if something happened in the middle of the summer, the spring. So I think we still could do something that could affect that day. We still have up until the 24th if we needed to go into that next week. But everyone seemed to feel, based upon the refresher that we had last week in April, a vacation week, that we should be able to power through. So I think, if we found we really needed something, I think we could change that again in a couple of weeks. But I think establishing the date was the consensus of the group. They wanted to have that firm date of the 19th. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Any other comments from the committee?
Well.
Diana, good?
Yep.
That seems like a sound plan. I mean, it makes sense.
Okay. Well, how about, since we need to have a vote, would somebody like to make a motion to revise the school calendar to end on June 19th?
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept the changes to the calendar as described, with having the last day of school be the June 19th.
Second.
Okay, since we have to do roll call for this, if there's no more discussion, Janine?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And an aye as well. Passes unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Now, moving on, we have to do the school committee meeting calendar as well. And so, Patrick, if you'd like to take this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Buckley. So, as I mentioned previously, we've had to do a few updates here to the school committee. So what I've just shared with you is a slightly amended calendar. A few things are crossed out as we reschedule. So for tonight, we're doing our budget workshop, the school choice vote, the superintendent's evaluation. For May 18th, that would be the budget vote at this time. And you can see that I've moved the school committee reorganization and the little school presentation. Those two events, along with the middle school presentation, I've checked in with the principals of the schools, and I've also checked with Mr. Buckley on this. And we've decided that the true spirit of those presentations is that they're hosted at the school, the students are presenting, and we just feel that we're not able to recreate those situations this year to the extent that we like to do that and that we're comfortable doing that. And so we are respectfully requesting that those presentations be tabled until next school year for the little school and the middle school. We don't think that they will have the impact that they typically have, and the principals felt that there's quite enough going on at this time with the students to do this, and that it couldn't be created and captured virtually. The other consideration is that the CPAC presentation on June 1st, that will continue. The elementary school improvement plan presentations and the retiring elementary personnel who are honored usually at that presentation, we're going to move those both to the June 22nd date, on which we would have all of the school improvement plan presentations, middle, high school, and elementary, as well as the retiring folks from all the buildings. We don't have a great number of retirees this year, and we feel that we can accomplish this in one evening. And I think the bit of extra time for all of the improvement plans to come in the same night will be greatly appreciated. I've moved the town meeting to the 29th, which is the time it's tentatively scheduled. And then I did add a date for July. We've been discussing a July date. I have in there that could be a virtual meeting. That's assuming that the existing open meeting laws are extended to continue through the summer. But I'm just putting that out there as a possible date for a July meeting for us to check in. One of the items that we do need to do that over the summer is the superintendent's evaluation. And I'm suggesting that night of July 20th. And if it is virtual, that might allow for some more flexibility. So I thought we would update the schedule, and these were the suggestions that I'm making as a recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. Why don't we maybe put a motion on, and if anybody has any thoughts, we can discuss afterwards. Janine, since you made the first one, would you mind making a motion on this one as well?
Certainly. I move to accept the updated school committee meeting schedule as announced by Superintendent Patrick Daly.
Second.
Okay, any discussion from anybody on this?
So I have a couple things.
Go ahead.
The dates all seem fine. So would we, but I wonder, so town election is now tentatively scheduled for the 23rd. Is that correct? June 23rd?
The town meeting?
No, the
town election.
Yeah, at the moment, I think there's still some questions around those items. So that's why I didn't, you may be addressing why I didn't put the reorganization in there later.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just wasn't 100% sure of when that would be. So, but if that is held, are you saying that you would want to see that reorganization scheduled at the meeting after it or something like that?
I would think we could do it. We could, extend the. Usually, we're meeting at 6:30 on the night of the town meeting, just quickly, and then going into the town meeting. But perhaps we could, if that made sense, we could probably do the reorganization. Just meet a half an hour earlier or something like that.
We could certainly do that if once those dates are kind of confirmed. There's so much that's in the air with those dates, but we can certainly put that in there. Yes.
Okay. And then just throwing it out for the committee, when do we want to try to complete the self-evaluation? Looks like June 1st might be the time to do that presentation, but what does everybody else think?
Sounds good to me.
I would agree with you, Rich, about June 1st. Just looking at the dates we have, that seems to be the right one.
Okay. So we'll plan on that, and we'll get the forms out shortly, so everyone has plenty of time.
And I can certainly adopt and update the calendar, if it's approved with those two changes. And knock on wood, we won't have to amend this again, but we may have to. But I can certainly make those changes as recommended.
Okay, Janine, since it's your motion, are you okay with the amendments from Rich, adding the reorganization on June 29th before town meeting and school committee evaluation on self-evaluation on June 1st?
I am.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this? So with the motion pending, I'll take a roll call. Janine?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Now we have to do the school choice public hearing and vote. So for a public hearing, I believe I have to open the public hearing. And this is so I officially open the school choice public hearing and for 2020. And I turn it over to Dr. Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. So what I'm going to share with you here is that, under the Education Reform Act of 1993, there's a need to hold an annual public hearing on school choice. Becoming a school choice district means that North Reading will accept students from other cities and towns for enrollment in its schools. Once a student is accepted as a choice student, he or she is a student until graduation, or the student opts to withdraw. The district receives an additional $5,000 from the sending district's Chapter 70 funds for each student accepted. After the hearing, the school committee has to make a decision on participation by taking a vote, and that vote is then reported to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education by June 1st. Over the years, the motion approved by school committee is included to not participate in school choice because the program, as it is presently constructed, ensures that the needs of some children of the Commonwealth cannot be met. So I believe that we need to have our hearing, discussion, and vote on school choice participation. And Mr. Connolly, I'm not sure, did you have anything to add to that information?
Michael, are you on mute?
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Buckley. Yeah, I was on mute. No, Dr. Daly, that's certainly the process. And, as a point of discussion, we historically have obviously voted not to elect to enter into school choice. That would be the administration's recommendation this evening. Certainly we all understand the current fiscal constraints that we'll be facing, as we'll get to in momentarily in this meeting. And we feel that with these recent budget challenges as we look to fiscal year 21, many of the schools would already be in some cases understaffed with maxed enrollment. So we fear that any potential new school choice revenue would just be needed to really increase staff and not enhance any programs. So under the fiscal constraints, we don't feel it would be a wise decision to recommend becoming a school choice school. Great, thank you.
Okay, so open it up for discussion. I'll go around just to see if anybody has comments. Rich, do you have any comments or thoughts?
No, thank you.
Chris?
No, none at this time.
Diana?
No, just that I'm in agreement with the administration's recommendation.
Janine?
I agree. It's not anything that we need to venture into.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think I see the purpose that's trying to be, served by this program, but I just think for North Reading, and especially this year, it's just not something that I think is good for our district. And so I would agree with the administration's recommendation on this. And so I'm going to turn, so I guess we have to have a vote here. So if I could have somebody make the motion. I think the motion is included in our packet.
It is, and I will make it, I make a motion to not participate in the school choice because the program, as it is presently constructed, ensures that the needs of some of the children of the Commonwealth cannot be met.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call. Janine?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I'm in agreement as well. So we agree not to participate. If there's no further discussion, I will call the public hearing on school choice to close. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Now we will move forward with payment of wages. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Connolly, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I was just going to introduce, and then Michael can speak to it. But up to this point in the year, at each time that the closure has been extended, we have approached you about continuing to support our teachers and the payment of wages during the period of closure. Just to address clearly what we're calling for here, this would be through, and Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong, not what it says here. I did it through the entire closure through the end of the year, but this would be payment of wages through the last day of school. This is another reason why setting that date is important. So I believe that what we're requesting at this time is to keep our current employees whole. These are our employees who are under contract with us through June 19th of 2020. I just want to note that there are some contractual items that we're in discussions with these unions to discuss about how they are playing out in this very unusual and unique year. And there are some conversations that are going to continue. But when we talk about payment of wages here, we're talking about the main benefits of the salary for the employees. And I just wanted to clarify that. Mr. Connolly, could you just confirm that the date that I just said is the correct one, and it's the last day of school, which would be June 19th?
That's correct. So I think what we're asking here, as Dr. Daly just articulated, is we're asking for certainly base payment of wages and salaries for school year staff to occur through June 19th, 2020, and then it would be, I guess, full year staff to occur through the end of the fiscal year. So it would be June 30, 2020. So it's almost 2 dates based on the classifications of the staff. Does that make sense?
Okay. So what we're looking for, so this has nothing to, this does not relate to the letter from the athletic director at all. We're not talking about stipends, correct?
Correct. That would be later items this evening. This is just about the regular salary wages for our employees.
Okay. And so we've had this before, so I don't expect that there will be much more discussion on this. So perhaps we can have a motion on this, on the payment of the wages, and then we can discuss if there's any further discussion.
Yes, I would introduce those other items in a moment, but I wanted to do this one first.
Yep. Janine, you've been doing such a good job. Would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I was just trying to think how to state it as good as they did. I make a motion to extend the base salary and salary of the employees to June 19th, and for the salaries of the other employees to the end of June, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it would just be school year employees through June 19th, and then full year personnel through June 30th.
Thank you.
Okay. Need a second? Okay, perfect. Any further discussion from the committee? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Janine?
Who's second?
Go ahead.
I believe
that.
Yeah, quick question
Diana
from.
did.
No, I think a member of the public. Go ahead.
I think was that Cindy asking who seconded it?
Yes, Diana did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, roll call. Janine?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. The motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Thank you. Dr. Daly?
Thank you. And so for the next part of this would be some other information related to coaches for the spring. Mr. Connolly, would you like to share that piece? I can scroll.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Daly. So in your packet this evening was a letter from Athletic Director David Johnson, which I think he articulated really what we want to discuss this evening really well, and that is the payment to spring athletic and assistant coaches. So, Mr. Johnson, as the athletic director of the athletic program, is certainly advocating in his letter that there be some recognition of the work that the athletic coaching staff did. Even though there is no spring season, unfortunately. I know that was devastating news to the student athletes and the coaching staff and parents, and certainly everyone involved in the community that looks so forward to each athletic season. But I think what Mr. Johnson is alluding to, and I think the administration certainly agrees with many of the contents in the letter, that there is quite a bit of work that does go into that the coaching staff does put into before the start of the season. So the start of the spring season was due to begin on Monday, March 16th, just about right before the school closure period began. And a lot of work in preparation of the season by the coaching staff, as Mr. Johnson articulates in his letter, certainly had already occurred. So that the season really doesn't start on Monday, March 16th. It really starts kind of weeks beforehand, with preparation of doing parent meetings, doing preseason meetings with the team, getting them ready. A lot of communication goes out to the student athletes, goes out to the parents. There was a lot of the league, Cape Ann League, and state level coaches meetings occur before the start of the season to review the schedule, to make changes to the schedule, to communicate that schedule to team and parents, and review both the away and home game schedule, as well as at the state level to review the MIA tournament schedule as well. So a lot of that work did go in before March 16th, and when the school closure period was initially announced, it was announced through April 27th, I believe, and then it eventually got extended to May 4th. But in that 4 or 5 week period, the teams and the coaching staffs were very hopeful that there would be a season. So in that 4 or 5 week period where we were waiting to see what the situation would be before the cancel of the season occurred, sometime about a week and a half ago or so, there was a lot of communication and reach out as well to the team members during that period to make sure if they were able to begin the season on Monday, May 4th, that they would have been ready to go. So what we want to do here is recognize and appreciate Dave Johnson's advocacy for the work of his coaching staff. Many of the coaches in our programs, fortunately, are longtime devoted, members of not only the coaching staff, but they're also, teachers or staff members in the district. And we would like to certainly recognize them with a partial payment of their wages for the spring season. Dr. Daly and I have reached out to many districts across the state on this exact question to inquire what is happening across the state as well as in the Cape Ann League. We haven't heard back from everyone, but we've certainly heard back from more than a few. And we do feel many districts, and there's at least the half a dozen or so I've heard back from in the Cape Ann League, are certainly moving forward with some type of a partial payment. There are some that maybe be electing not to pay, but I think those are in the minority based on the information that we have. But certainly, we feel it's the right thing to do, to recognize the work that had gone into in preparation, and certainly appreciate their efforts, as well as to, we want the staff to be more than ready to go and return even more devoted as we look to the future. So what we're prepared to recommend is that, and to open up for discussion, is that we move forward and approve this evening a partial payment of 25% to head coaches of what their full contractual base stipend would have been should there have been a full season, and a 15% partial payment to the assistant coaches. And we certainly we've done something. We certainly know that financially, if you look at the financial decision and impact of that, it adds up to just over $20,000 in spring stipends. Would there have been a season, we would have probably paid close to $100,000, if not a little bit more, in stipend payments, with postseason compensation being part of that payment. That was so. We've certainly done a lot of review, certainly on my end, and you know, I certainly feel like this is necessary, and I do feel it's affordable as part of our FY20 budget projections at this point.
Mr. Connolly, if I could
Yes,
just add
please.
a comment. I just wanted to reiterate what you said here. I want to say, you know, when we initially went out and we were unsure of what the season would look like, this was one of the pieces when we talked about keeping folks whole that we certainly have put off. And I appreciate that our teachers union has been very patient in working with us on this conversation for a long time. But as Mr. Connolly mentioned, as Mr. Johnson's letter mentions, you know, these folks, many of them are our teachers. Others are coaches, have been long coaches for a long time for us. And they are still, in many ways, engaging with our students, whether it's on social media or through other forums. There's been a lot of support given to our students who are really disappointed that they're not playing, especially our seniors who were looking forward to a senior spring season that didn't happen. And there's been a lot of things going on behind the scenes that these folks have been doing to help our students cope with some of those disappointments, and to also be creative in different ways to experience some kind of that social aspects of team sport if they can't be out there on the fields. And so, you know, I trust that, you know, Mr. Connolly, when he runs the numbers and is able to do something for the folks to show our appreciation of that support and for the work that they've done this year preseason and also some of the support during the season. I do support and recommend this action. So thank you for presenting that, Mr. Connolly.
Great. No, thank you, Dr. Daly. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Connolly. I have a lot of concerns about this, to be perfectly honest, but I want to, before I start throwing my opinion around, I want to open it up for discussion from other members of the committee. If anybody has, well, I'll go around just in case if people do. I mean, Chris, do you have any comments or thoughts?
Sure. I follow the logic and the philosophy of wanting to give some percentage to recognize what is most certainly a good amount of work that went in, even when there isn't an actual quote unquote season this year, and all of the circumstances around it. My only question then is, my understanding is that this pay comes, or typically all of these stipends are paid entirely out of the excuse me, I'm blanking on the word, the payments that people make so that their kids can participate in
user fees.
Thank you very much. User fees. And without there being spring user fees this year, since this stopped before the season began, this ends up just, we'd have to find the $20,000 for this, Mr. Collins.
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. I probably should have addressed it in the opening comments. So the one item, and that was for the first time in fiscal year 20 that actually is not the case. So we used to budget a partial payment of the coaches' contractual stipends were coming from the revolving account per se, revenue generated from the user fee or the game receipt. We've been trying to phase that out given the fact that expenses have been going up beyond stipends in the athletic program. So for the first time in fiscal year 20, all of the coaches and stipends payments are actually part of the general fund operating budget, whereas the user fee, so the user fee does not support, or the revenue that goes into the revolving account does not support coaching stipends. It supports everything else as part of the program: equipment, supplies, transportation, rental costs of ice, pool, officials, game personnel. All other expenses related to running an athletic program are paid for by the user fees and the game receipts.
So then, if I'm understanding correctly, if I'm understanding correctly, then it sounds like the lack of user fees won't impact the budget at all, because it seems like all of that money, really close to 100%, is going through operational costs that just won't happen this year. And that's right. And then, so really, this means that there will be $20,000 less of that money left over from our budget that we'd planned to spend, but it won't have us kind of trying to find it from some other source.
That's correct. So it's money that was budgeted. As you know, we're trying to obviously save in all areas that we can right now, given the uncertainty around fiscally, not only at the local level, at the state level, and we're obviously going to be in the conversation that will occur after this. In the next agenda item, we'll talk about some potential impact of some of the revolving accounts that we had planned offsets for that will now have to have a potential general fund impact. So, but we've looked at everything really, really closely. I had talked several weeks ago about a financial risk assessment that was done that looked at these types of things. I continue to update that on a daily basis, and we are certainly finding ways to save a little bit more than even I had initially projected. So I think I had shared a number or what that delta was several weeks ago. That delta continues to go down. So I do think we're in good financial standing in fiscal 20 to make such of a payment. That's why we're kind of confidently recommending it this evening, and for all the reasons that, again, Mr. Johnson noted in his letter and Dr. Daly articulated this evening, we do feel like it's the right thing to do as well.
Okay.
Rich, any comments or questions?
Yeah, so a couple things. I definitely feel like that the coaches who made, on good faith, began their work for the spring season prior to the beginning of the spring season, and even continued that work through the early parts of the school closure period, not knowing whether or not the season would be canceled for real. I'm not sure that in good conscience I could vote against compensating them in some way. That being said, Michael, I just want to your last comment there at the end. It may well be that we sort of quote unquote have the money in terms of part of the 2020 budget, but obvious. Or maybe it's not obvious, maybe I'm wrong about this, but it would seem like, given the challenges we're going to be facing going forward, any savings that we can realize are going to have an impact on 2021. So I mean, I'm not wrong, or am I wrong about that? Or
I mean, that's certainly an accurate statement. I think we are certainly experiencing a level of savings that we think we're going to be able to do our best in a legal way to make available in fiscal 21.
Right.
I will say there's certain limitations to that. There's only so much of that you can do in a legal format to spend or to somehow make savings in FY20 available in subsequent in future budget years. So I think we're still experiencing, in my opinion, quite a bit of savings here in that line item. Not the full line, but we're still experiencing over $80,000 of savings. So I think that is a substantial amount that will be important for us to use, and I think we'll maximize that as well. So
yeah, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that we're clear on what our decision, what that sort of either or is. Is that money that is useful, or is it money that is more restricted? Yeah. So anyway, as I say, in general, I wouldn't feel comfortable not coming around to some compensation for the coaches for their efforts leading up. And I just want to say too that first of all, I appreciate Mr. Johnson's impassioned plea here in his letter. I think he did a really nice job articulating all that. And also, you can see the efforts on the coaches, and have been able to see them on Twitter, on social media, as they promote their teams and talk up their players, and that's been really great to see, along with all the other activity from all the staff in the last few weeks. So.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Imbriano, do you have any comments or questions or thoughts?
Nothing that hasn't already been said. It's a sad situation, and I think Mike and Patrick are doing a really good job, just trying to make the best of everything.
Mrs. Boutwell?
Same. I think Rich articulated it well, in the same exact boat. So thank you.
So I have a number of thoughts, and maybe to Rich McGowan's point, maybe my conscience isn't as troubled by some of the things. I find this hard right now because we're going to be talking about a $900,000 deficit. I understand a lot can't be carried over year to year, but we can buy supplies that can be used for next year. We could replace smart boards. We could, prepay special education costs. There are things that we can do. Right now, we've been doing our best to try to make sure that we keep all salaried positions here. We try to keep every, food service workers. We've been trying to do well by our bus drivers. And, for spring sports, like I appreciate that there's work that goes into it. I 100% appreciate that. None of this, whether I vote for or against, paying a stipend does not in any way mean that I don't appreciate the work that's being done. But I just feel like at some point in time, something has to be cut, and there has to be money that is saved in some way. And we're going to give back the full user fee most likely because sports didn't happen. No practices happened. No games happened. No tryouts happened, I don't believe. And there were meetings that were held beforehand. But more than that, I mean, just the way that it's being presented is 25% to head coaches. Well, some head coaches make $9,000 or $10,000, and, like a tier 1 or category A, category B coaches. Whereas if, we're not saying like what was done, if there was like a couple of meetings done by every coach, like certain coaches make a lot more because they were, they have a sport that plays every day and other people might play once a week, or I don't know. I mean, I think a $20,000 payment, which is normally $100,000, paying, basically 20% of the full fee when no practices, no tryouts, no season happened. I mean, if we wanted to talk about doing, a $500 stipend to head coaches to show our appreciation, that's one thing. But I don't know. I mean, and again, I'm one vote, and I'm not going to try to persuade everybody. I just think, I sit in the finance planning team meetings. I see how tough revenue projections are going to be. I see where we have to get to, and again, we've been trying to prioritize keeping as many positions as we can. And I think it's hard to vote for paying stipends for, athletics that didn't occur this year. And so I appreciate where everyone's coming from. I do. This is not in any way saying, I don't appreciate the coaches. I don't appreciate that there's been planning done for seasons. I think a lot of, anybody that played any sports understands that a lot of success comes from off-season training and planning and thinking. But I just think it's hard as one of the keepers of the town funds to authorize paying, stipends, especially this substantial stipends for seasons that didn't even happen. And so, for me on this specific proposal with every head coach, I don't know the level of work that's gone into different ones. Again, to say that we're going to pay, $2,000 to some coaches for, I don't know. I don't know what work's gone into that. It just seems a little bit excessive to me at this point in time. So that's my challenges with it. And I don't know. I mean, so I think on this specific request, I think my vote would be against it. I don't know what other people think. And if, again, we can just vote on it right now, or I'll just open it up if anybody else has any other thoughts or questions or comments.
So I guess, Scott, one thing I'll say is that, obviously a blanket number or a blanket percentage is definitely potentially, advantaging one person over another or disadvantaging one over another. I'm not sure how you square that out without doing maybe a lot more work and analysis. How did you, Michael and
Yeah.
Patrick, how did you guys come to those numbers?
So I've done certainly the analysis, and first I'll just note that in the spring season, there's no Category A coaching position in the spring season. So we're really looking at a max stipend of $7,000 for a head coach in Category B. Most fortunately, we have very good longevity and low turnover in our North Reading coaching staff. So most of these coaches fall in the same area of being about the same level, the same stipend in Category B or Category D if you're an assistant, which is really what we're talking about. So I think what we really did is some of it was based on peer district analysis from what we had, and we did our best to collect the data to date, and I thought we had some good data to go on. Not everyone has responded to the surveys that we've sent out, but I think there were a lot of districts, Cape Ann League, that were moving forward with something. We're falling in the range that we're recommending this evening, or in some cases higher, in some cases slightly lower. But we looked at some of the work that we believe does go into the season, 3 or 4 weeks before the start of the season, as well as as Dr. Daly I think alluded to, the work that went on when we really felt there, and we're all hopeful that there was going to be a season. So that was, in my opinion, a good bulk of the time. And even now, even though the season's been canceled, I do know there's work happening. They're trying to find virtual ways to vote for captains and vote for leadership next year, and coaches are setting up those surveys and polls and communicating out. So there is work that's happening, and getting feedback from their assistants and helping them set up those Google documents and so forth to analyze those coaching decisions. So we felt a 25%, given the bulk of that work was coming from the head with some input from the assistants, and a 15% based on what we can afford financially, and based on what was being fair and reasonable in recognizing our coaching staff, not only for the work that's gone in, but just for the work that they do and continue to do, and the work that we want them to continue to do into the future. And I know that they will. And what some of our peers have done, we felt it was a reasonable amount to land on. And taking a cost impact, to bring it back to the financials of $20,000, we felt, and I strongly feel it's something we can afford. And there are savings in other areas that I continue to analyze and we continue to maximize. But I think I believe wholeheartedly we're still going to be able to do all those things that we're legally able to do to potentially to the highest extent that we can do, in terms of prepaying tuitions and doing what we can from a legal standpoint in our revolving accounts and so forth, that to help the situation that we're faced with in the next couple of years to come. So does that help answer the question?
That was helpful to me, yes.
If I can jump in for a second. So, Mr. Buckley, I understand what you're saying, and I think that, in the best of years, we have to be very careful about every dollar we spend in a school budget, and particularly given where things are trending right now, agreeing potentially now to give out gives the wrong word, but to pay out $20,000 is something that should give us some real pause, and we should weigh that in. But I think it comes back to Dr. Daly's point that he's made several times now over the last couple months, which is that this is about keeping people's payments intact, keeping people whole, as he says. These employees did some of this work, and sure, they're not doing as much as they would do in a regular year, but they're to different extents counting on some of this salary as part of their lives. And I think that matters a lot. And if we have it in our budget, if we can honestly afford to pay them a percentage of this in recognition of work they've done, and also to keep them whole, then I think that it's it's a priority for us, and it's incumbent upon us to do so.
Yeah, and I appreciate the sentiment. I appreciate where it's coming from, but to me, I just think again, a blanket 25% to head coaches when we don't know what actually has been done. It seems like a lot of money when no practices or games have taken place. And again, I'm not actually trying to dissuade anybody or change anybody's vote here. I just, I think for me, when I just see where we're struggling, and Michael, you mentioned the delta. I mean, it seems like we're still going to be in a negative in the delta. We're going to talk about that. Where parents are going to be paying for things that they didn't get full service of, and I don't know. It's hard for me. So, but again, I think we can have a motion on this. There's a recommendation here of doing a 25% of the stipend to head coaches and 15% to assistant coaches. And so I'd ask for somebody to make a motion.
Well, just one last thought, and I don't know if it's stirring a hornet's nest. Not to make it sound very fun, but with these coaches, and I agree with Mr. Connolly. I teach in Wakefield, and I've seen it from my peers there that some of these coaches are working quite hard now to try and help their student athletes out. And if we're refunding user fees, which will be coming up in a moment, perhaps some parents would be willing to, being aware of the situation, to make contributions that could help offset some of the costs of this pay. But again, I don't know if that's off base or just kind of worms.
Well, I think one thing we're going to talk about on the next for refunds is that if there is a refund that is owed for certain things, I think spring sports we're going to talk about just going back, but on other ones, perhaps there's an option to get a refund, or if you do nothing, you can count it as a tax donation to the schools, that you can potentially deduct on your taxes. But right. I don't want to make Mr. Connolly and Dr. Daly's jobs any harder. I know this is, in the grand scheme of things, I know a lot of work has gone into this, and we're talking about $20,000, and I don't really want to. I know there's a lot going on for both of them right now, and I really don't want to say go back to the drawing board. I just don't see it the exact same way here, and so. But I think we can have a motion on right here. I think there's a lot of work that's been done. People reached out to other districts, and it's 100% justifiable to give something, and there's never going to be an agreement on what that something is, whether it's a percentage, whether it's a dollar amount or what it is. But I think we have a suggestion here from Mr. Connolly and Dr. Daly, and so I think we can have a motion on it, have a second. If there's further discussion, we can talk more, and then have a vote and kind of go from there.
I'll be happy to make a motion.
Thank you.
I move that the school committee vote to approve the administration's plan to pay a percentage of the stipends for spring sports in the amount of 25% for head coaches and 15% for assistant coaches.
I second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Any other thoughts? Okay, we'll do a roll call. Start with Rich.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Janine.
Aye.
Diana.
Aye.
I'm going to be a nay, so it'll pass 4-1. Thank you very much. And we move on to the refunds for spring 2020. And I hand this over to Dr. Daly and Mr. Connolly as well.
Great. I'm going to, Mr. Connolly, I believe you can maybe take the lead on this one as well.
Yes, great. So in your packet this evening, there was kind of a white list summary of what we've kind of discussed in terms of what the administration is recommending this evening in terms of user fee and tuition payment refunds. Certainly something similar to the topic we just discussed with coaches pay that we have certainly talked about a lot since we were dealt with school closure and the extension of school closure. Something that I continue to have conversations with my peers. I know Dr. Daly continues to have conversations with his superintendent peers, and not always an easy discussion or an easy path, given that we're really in uncharted territory, and this is unprecedented. There's not a lot to go on in terms of historical perspective of this situation. So that being said, in your packet this evening, we sort of walked through the four major programs this evening that we are going to recommend some course of action in terms of refunding parents, based on disruptions of services that they felt that would have happened should the school closure not have happened. So the first being, I'm just going to take them one by one based on the packet, and we can certainly take questions as I go. But the first being the athletic spring sports user fee. So we are recommending a full refund to those families who have paid in advance online. Would be processed in the coming weeks. It certainly may take us a few weeks to start processing these refunds, as there's a lot of data entry and a lot of work would be involved both in my office and at town hall. So these all couldn't happen in one full swoop. Should we move forward with these this evening? It will take some time. So in terms of spring sports, as I noted, we've received about 91 online payments in advance that we would be looking to refund those families. Many other families have paid in with the check, who we have actually not cashed those checks, so we would just void and send those back to families. We would like to send communication out this week to these families. This total amount of the full refund of the 91 checks we have received totals a little more than $21,000. I have noted here in the packet that our projection based on our anticipated participation in spring sports of a user fee collection was going to be about $65,000 this year. So for us not collecting a user fee, that is the amount. But as I said, we're also saving a lot on the expense side in terms of we're not paying anything in athletic transportation to our transportation provider. We're not paying officials. We're not paying game personnel. A lot of the supplies and equipment, we've been able to put many of those on hold. So there's a lot of contractual services and so forth of things that we've been able to hold, and rental of some indoor tennis time, rental of porta potties, all these types of things we've been able to stop and put on hold in enough time. That really negates a lot of the lack of this revenue in the revolving account.
Mr. Connolly, Mr. Connolly,
yes.
My one suggestion would be, I think we should probably do motions on each of the subjects separately. So perhaps we go through one at a time, and just rather than going through the whole thing and then trying to jump back and forth. So perhaps when you finish up on the spring sports, we can discuss that and have a motion just on that, and then section by section.
That's great. I definitely agree with you. Mr. Buckley, absolutely. So that's really kind of essentially what we're looking to present on the athletic spring sports side. We feel, again, everyone I've spoken to is issuing a refund. Some schools have not even started collecting. They don't start that process until the season starts. So it's a little bit easier from other districts I've spoken to, but we do feel these families that do the full refund. This was one that we had not discussed, or we were not going to do sort of the option to either donate or give back, given that only about 40% or so we've actually cashed or we've taken that payment in. But we feel the full refund is the appropriate thing to do.
Thank you very much. I mean, and open up a discussion, but I agree with you. I mean, I just think this is very obvious. Some people haven't even paid the fee yet because it hadn't started yet. It would be unfair to, do anything other than this. The reality is, as I just said before, no practices have taken place, no trials have taken place, no games have taken place. to me, it's a no-brainer that we should return these funds, but I'll open it up if other people have other comments. So perhaps we can have a motion, a second, and then further discussion if there is any.
I'll make a motion to refund the families that have paid for the athletic spring season sports.
I'll
Second. Yep, sorry, Rich can take it.
Rich for the second. Okay, any discussion? Anybody have any other thoughts? Any reason not to? Okay, we'll go through
I can
the
tell a lot of
roll.
reasons not to, but it's the right thing to do.
So go through the roll call. Janine,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Diana,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that passes 5-0. Thank you. Mr. Connolly,
Great.
bus transportation.
Thank you. So similarly to the athletic, I kind of highlighted 6 main points. We are recommending partial refunds be given to those families who either paid an individual bus pass fee of $400, which is 300 families, and then the family bus pass fee of $650. We received 219 of those payments from families. We've kind of gone over this, and again, right now we're certainly looking at what is appropriate in terms of the lack of services that have occurred. We're also certainly looking on the financial end, and it's really about trying to find a balance and trying to find that sweet spot and being fair and keeping an eye on, fiscally as well. We felt that 25%, which was about a quarter of the year discount for lack of bus services, which was, for the months of April, May, and June was appropriate. If you look at it, if you kind of try to break up the year on a kind of a quarterly standpoint with, April, May, and June being the final quarter. So we feel, this amounts to about a $100 refund for those 300 families that would have paid the individual bus pass of $400 and a $160 refund amount for those 219 families that would have paid the family bus pass of $650. Again, we're hoping to get the word out and communicate this to families this week, because some of these questions are starting to come in at a more rapid pace. The total dollar amount of this refund and the financial impact of this would be $78,705. This is one that we do feel when we communicate this out, we would provide the opportunity for families to either donate all or a portion of their refund amount that is due back to them, back to the district, through a kind of a Google automated form process. And if they wanted to donate that back, they would receive a tax deductible receipt, and we would officially eventually recognize that publicly at an upcoming meeting. So that's what we're looking to do on bus transportation. Any questions?
Thank you very much. So just to be clear I want to clarify one thing, and I have one concern here as well. On the tax part, what I would hope it would happen is that anybody who would be given any refund would get notification, and they could submit something to say that they wanted to get the refund back. And if they didn't do that, then they would automatically receive a tax receipt showing that it was a donation made. So I hope that it can be in that way, where if families do nothing, then it's a donation and they'll get a receipt showing that it's a donation. My concern here is I agree with the other ones, but the next one's coming up, but I don't agree with this amount, because my concern here is if we look at the last quarter of the year, basically the last quarter of the year, the goal was that the user fees were going to pay about 50% of the total cost. The school district was going to pay about 50% of the total cost. And no services happened, but we are still paying 80% of the fee for the buses. So if we give back the entire fee that was going to be paid by the user fees, so the 50% that we were going to get from user fees to pay that, even with a 20% reduction, we are now paying a higher amount for this last quarter for the bus fee than we were scheduled to pay beforehand. Is that correct, Michael? Am I wrong on this, or?
So, well, we were able to get the bus company down to 78%. It's a little bit less. It's 22% savings. So it is true that I guess what we're refunding maybe, so it's I guess 25% versus 22% in a way. We've never quite been at fiscally that 50 to 50 ratio. It's always been a goal of ours. Although the general fund and theoretically what we're collecting is a little bit less than a 50% our target. And the buses, based on who opts into the optional program and who qualifies for the free busing, is probably pretty close to 50-50 when you look at the participation in each. So I can see certainly where you're going on that.
Well,
I can see,
Michael,
yeah.
If I may,
Yeah.
But you're proposing a 100% refund of the fourth quarter of the bus fee.
Well, it's
which
not
is
quite
25% of the yearly fee, correct?
It's not quite 100%. So I mean, if you look at it, I'm trying to break the year down quarterly, which is difficult to do because the school year is 10 months. So this is actually a little bit more than a quarter if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
A quarter is about 2.5 months, and we're really looking at 3.5 months of no service. So if you looked at it that way, it would actually, and you looked at it, it might be up to $120 or so, or a little bit more than what I'm offering here, what we're offering here. But I tried to look at, April through June as being pretty close to fourth quarter services, at least fiscally anyway. And again, just trying to find that balance between what's fair to the families as a fair amount based on the services. You're not trying to get it right down to every minute or every hour, or every day that they would have been on that bus, but pretty close. And then just looking at what we're able to afford. This is certainly financially challenging, but I'll just say, we've been able to, at the end of every fiscal year, been able to pay, in some cases, partial May, partial June transportation bills that we normally would have paid from the revolving account with the general fund. So the revolving account's in pretty good standing, and it actually could handle this without huge impact, and certainly won't impact fiscal year 21 by us doing this. And we're not going to have to then take the offset and significantly reduce that or really impact that. So that was certainly part of the analysis, and I think it's still a fair amount that we're offering. Does that make sense?
But it does. But my concern still is, if you look at the dollar amount that we had budgeted to pay for the buses this year, it seems like by giving this refund, the school district will actually be paying a higher total dollar amount for the buses this year than we would have paid, even though we have a 20% discount. So my proposal would have been either to take the dollar amount of that 22% discount that we got, and either split that half and half and refund one half of the discount that we received to the user fees, or if that's not a very substantial amount, take the entire discount we got, the 22% of those 3.5 months or whatever we got, take that total dollar amount. And I don't know what that total dollar amount is. Did you know what that total dollar amount is, Michael, that 22% that we are saving?
We are I have it. If you want to give me a minute, I can get it to you exactly. I have it. I know roughly what it is.
60,000?
We're saving about 15,000 a month off the bill for the months of April, May, and June. And then the March prorated bill, we were saving about just under 8,000. So we're really looking at about 53. I want to say it's 53,000 and give or take $500.
Yeah. So by saving $53,000 but refunding $78,000, we're losing $25,000 out of the budget. And so to me, I would propose either taking that $53,000 or let's say $54,000 and sharing it and saying, basically we get a $27,000 savings and the users get a $27,000 savings, or passing the whole savings on to the users and saying it's a $53,000 savings. I don't think we should give more back than we're saving, because the total amount we're paying for the year ends up being more for buses.
Okay, that's always been the case, though. We've never been at that 50 to 50. It's always been a goal, but that was where we were at 4 or 5 years ago. But when the market changed in busing, and we suddenly went from a $280 rate to a $350 rate, that 50 to 50 ratio was no longer achieved, and we made the decision 3 or 4 years ago to not to keep trying to achieve that, because it would have been so much of a substantial increase to parents in 1 year that we fell below that 50-50 ratio. So I think this ratio is not probably too far off what we've historically been at, over the last 3 or 4 years, quite honestly.
And Mr. Buckley,
go ahead, Dr. Daly.
So just to weigh in a little bit here, I do appreciate both the comparative analysis Michael's done, and also the questions and the points you're raising. To the point you made earlier, the form that we've developed, Michael and I have been working on, it definitely does have that ability for a family to choose to participate in a donation, because some families may realize that the reason why we are still paying the buses despite not having them is to keep those companies whole, to keep the services intact, so that when school does resume, the buses will be there. And it's more than just having the drivers. It's also there's certain maintenance and things that need to be performed on the buses to keep them. You can't just keep them parked and not service them and run them. So there's a lot of maintenance and things that are going on in those buses now. So that will be an option for folks in the form that will be sent out, where they'll have the ability to choose whether they want to do a donation to the schools. And that will result in a near automatic generation of a tax form, as you mentioned. And then there is also those options for these reductions. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Okay. Other thoughts on the bus transportation, refund? Rich, I think you were trying to talk before. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I was just trying to clarify what you were saying. I mean, it is a little odd that setting aside the fact that it's not exactly 25% and it's an odd 8 years and 12 months and all that, we are essentially refunding 100% of the money for the missed time, while paying 80% of the expenses. So that there's definitely a mismatch there. That being said, I don't have any grand conclusions, I guess, except
I just,
Scott, your point, which is that seems a little off. But I guess I would say that for the parents, unless they feel differently and want to do the donation, none of that matters to them. What matters is they paid the money and they're not getting the service.
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know how to get around that. And I think the donation part is a good way to do it, and it'll be fascinating to see what the response is. I would take a page out of folks who do fundraising all the time, and don't hold back on when you write the letter on how great it would be if they did make that donation. Sort of maybe lead with the donation, and then oh, and by the way, if you'd like, we can send you a refund. But anyway, I get what you're saying, Scott. I just don't know how you square that with what people are going to actually want and expect.
Right. I mean, I appreciate that, Rich. If I could just note, because it might help, but I think there's going to be a lot of families that look at this and say, look, I paid $400. It's 10 months of service. If you look at it on a monthly basis, I should have paid, $40 a month or whatever it is. So where in reality, it should be somewhere in the range of $130.
Yeah.
Potentially, if we looked at it like that. So to me, we're right at that 80%, 78% spot in reality anyway. That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah.
If
I mean, I quickly added up the days, and it's actually, roughly speaking, 38% of the actual school days. So we're shorting them on a refund in that sense.
Yeah, it's not quite. It's certainly not a full refund quarter of the year. It would need to be a little bit higher, certainly.
I certainly appreciate, based on services that were provided is one way to look at it, but I'm looking at the cost that was paid. And so even if we just said we had budgeted to pay X amount of dollars, right now we're basically saying we're going to pay $25,000 more than that. If this was changed to an $80 refund for the 300 families with the individual bus passes and $140 for the 219 that did the family, that comes out to $54,660, which is almost exactly the amount that we're saving from the refund that we're getting, the 22% refund. So we're saving about $54,000. And that way, at least our line item for the year stays the same. We're not dipping into reserve funds, because dipping into the reserve funds ultimately hurts everybody as well, all the users, because the next bus contract is coming very soon, and we might have, I want to keep those reserve funds if we can. And so I guess my proposal here would be to make an adjustment to it and make it something like 80 and 140, so that the entire amount of the refund, and again, I think there's an argument that it should be only a portion of it, but I think some people will make that donation. But my argument would be that it should be $80 and 140, so that the total amount that we're refunding is the amount that we're saving. So our line item will not be higher than we budgeted for the year. But that would be my proposal, and I'm monopolizing time as I always do, so I'll open up to other people. I mean, Chris, do you have any comments or thoughts?
This is a tough one. It's, I mean, I find myself torn right between the points you and Richard both made very well. I mean, we've got an obligation to pay people back for a service they didn't get, but but I think the greater point to make here is that if we were to try and justify not giving back the full quarter or whatever feels like the appropriate percentage of time that they didn't get the service, they should keep in mind that we're paying that 80% to NRT to maintain that company and to maintain our ability to have a functioning bus system that we can seamlessly pick up in the fall, which we might not have if we didn't. And as a result, that's a service that everyone's benefiting from, even if their kid isn't getting picked up and brought to school every day. I don't know. I'm hoping to sit back and hear what other people think and then make up my own mind.
Diana, do you have any thoughts?
In my opinion, I think at the end of the day, the communication that goes out to the families around the bus service is just that. It's a service. So when they pay for it, they are paying in their mind for a service. So I agree with the administration. I think they should be refunded for the services that they did not receive. I feel like there could be very targeted communication around the fact that they do help offset the cost of the buses when we do ask for those donations. And I think that if we are clear around that and we articulate that in a certain way, you may see people donate that to help us with that offset. But at the end of the day, when they get that communication around bus service, they are signing up for a service. They're not signing up to, or it's not communicated that they're, really offsetting a cost for us.
Thank you. Well said. And again, I think there's 2 points here, valid points. And so I see the service argument 100% as well. Janine, thoughts?
I don't know. I've been going back and forth with it. And, to Mike's point, the amount that's being refunded is a little bit shy if you were to break it down by day or month or whatever. But to your point, we're paying more. So for them to get a refund, it might make more sense to have it more closely to what the benefit that we're getting by the 22% back from the bus company. So I'm even as I'm sitting, I'm still torn to which way to go. I you know, if I was still having children on the bus and for, you know, 3.5 months I wasn't getting the service, I would be like, yeah, I don't quite understand the argument about not getting the full amount back. So like I said, I'm still kind of going back and forth. But and a question for Mike and Patrick: when you're sending out the letter and saying, gee, you know, you could donate all or a portion of the amount, would that amount for the bus go specifically to the bus line uh, payment? You know what I'm saying? Or did it just go into a general fund?
It would have to go to the bus line. Yeah, it would legally it would stay within the revolving account and have to be pay for bus service.
Okay, good, because I just wanted clarification on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just want to mention one other thing. I feel like, you know, I feel like you have to keep the messaging somewhat understandable to the degree for parents that are dealing with a lot right now, as we all know. And I would struggle with trying to articulate and explain, you know, anything that is not related to the direct service that they're receiving in terms of our revolving account and what we look for it to pay and not pay. I think it would be a very confusing message. Yeah, I think we kind of want to keep it as simple as we can. And, you know, financially, I'm just saying we've had some good. We've somewhat budgeted conservatively and had some very good year-end closeouts over these past few years, where the revolving account, I'll just say, is in good standing. And I think it's for such a situation like we may face with the unexpected, the unforeseen, the catastrophe, and that's what we're dealing with. And I think we have the ability to do this.
I would put down how this is played out in some other communities. These refunds are reasonable, and I think trying to explain and articulate I mean, it's difficult for many of us to wrap our heads around the service that's being provided for the buses and why we're keeping that service whole. I think if people start questioning why the refunds are less because of this, that could open a whole can of worms with that decision. Again, that is a consistent decision across the state, but you know, I do think that the funds, the formula that Mr. Connolly's provided makes sense to me.
So the only other comments that I would make on this are three comments. Number one, the next fees we're going to talk about being refunded, we're not refunding all of them. You know, even though, you know, full day kindergarten, we're not talking about refunding all of that service fee. We're only talking about refunding a portion of it, you know, because and the idea being that there are expenses that are being incurred. There are services that are being provided as well, I understand, but we're not talking about refunding all of it, even though, you know, half day kindergarten and full day kindergarten will be receiving similar services, but we're not talking about a full refund on that service fee. I think that in terms of explaining it, I would simply say that we were able to negotiate a discount on the fee. We're passing that discount on, and so we're refunding this. You know, you paid these fees for this service. We've been able to negotiate a discount, and so we're sharing that we're spreading that out amongst all the users to return it, because we feel like that's the proper way to go. And ultimately, again, I'm just looking at what's coming on later on with the budget workshop here. I'm not adamant either way on this one, whether it's $80 or $100 or $160 or $140, but every $20,000, every $25,000 does matter. It's more money that we have to, you know, that we can't prepay a tuition. We can't buy something this year that has to be provided for next year. And so to me, at some point in time, we have to be careful with this. And so to me, I look at it more as we were able to get a $53,000 discount from the bus company. We're passing that discount back to the users. And, you know, again, and I think that's a simple thing. We say that we were able to negotiate this discount because of the services that were not provided by the bus company. So therefore, we're passing that entire refund on to the users as opposed to us taking it. But again, I am happy to be overruled as well on this one, but that's sort of how I feel. And so I think for the motion, the motion should be for either the 100 and 160 or the 80 and 140. And so perhaps we can just sort of, you know, I basically need to know 3 people saying either 100 or 80 on this one. And so I would say 80, but I don't know what everybody else says. And so, yeah.
Well, I think the proposal by the administration is what it is, unless Michael and Patrick, you guys are compelled by Scott's argument to change the proposal. I think we will vote on the proposal, and then if we need to rethink otherwise, I think we can do that.
Again, we can vote on that or we can modify it because it is us are voting to approve a refund. And so ultimately we can make whatever motion we'd like to make. But I'm fine if you want to just vote on the initial one. And if we don't agree with that one, we can vote on something different. But again, Michael and Patrick, I mean, it seems like you guys want to stay with you think the 100 to 160 is what you'd recommend?
Yes, I do. I certainly understand. It's believe me, it's not an easy. We wrestle with a lot of different types of things here. I certainly appreciate, Chairman Buckley, your comments. I certainly understand it where you're coming from. I think for the comments I made earlier and Dr. Daly made earlier, I think we will stand by the recommendation this evening.
Okay, we can have a motion on this one, and again, you can make a motion and then vote however you want. But if somebody can make a motion on the bus transportation refund,
I'll go ahead and I think I'm going to vote for it. So I guess I'll make the motion. I move that the committee vote to approve partial refunds partial refunds for those families who paid individual or family bus fees in the amounts of $100 for individuals and $160 for families that paid that made the family payment.
I second.
okay. Any further discussion?
Yes, I would say that given this conversation, I think that it would be prudent when having a Google automated form, giving families the opportunity to donate a portion of this, that it be published in that because of the amount of this refund and our need to continue paying an amount to NRT, that we're $25,000 short of where we had budgeted, and that they can choose in that light to donate some of this refunded money. And I think that might offset enough.
Good point.
Yep, well said.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's important. I do think it's important to in the letter clearly articulate that if you do this, that there is this shortfall, basically, this gap, and anything you donate would help close that gap.
Yeah, and again, I mean, in no way am I saying there should not be a refund. I just think it's our responsibility when we're, trying to balance budgets here to look at everything that we're giving back or paying. So, okay, so we have the motion on the table. Oh.
I was just say I agree with that completely. I think that your underlying point is a good one, which is that we don't want to dip into the reserve fund when we don't need to, and we're going to need that for a lot of things. But at an average of with 500 families, give or take, getting this refund, if $50 is the average they give back, that's the difference we're looking for. And I'm optimistic that we'll get a large amount of that back.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, so we'll go for a roll call. Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Okay, I'm not going to be against everybody over $20, so I'll say aye as well. Okay, the motion passes 5-0, and we move on to full day kindergarten.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the discussion. Thank you. So full day kindergarten, I'll try to move through it. Again, recommending a partial refund for the families that paid the full tuition, which is $4,250, which does include the $250 deposit. Again, these payments are broken out by quarter. There's 4 payments. The final quarter was due in February. That's of the $1,000. So that this money is in our account at this point. We've received it all in and we've deposited it. So we are recommending this evening that a 50% refund of the final $1,000 payment for services over the, again, final quarter of the year that has been disrupted for April, May, and June, for a total of a $500 refund be given to families. There is still, as we all know, remote learning and family communications are continuing, for full day on the part of all full day kindergarten teachers and paraprofessionals. So we're continuing with the remote learning process. We're moving through the phases of that remote learning. So there certainly are services being given, although we recognize it's much different than the traditional, brick and mortar, school building services that would have been expected at the start of the year. Financially, there are 145 families due a refund amount, which has a total financial impact of $72,500. We hope to send communications to families this week. This final bullet is, again, it's one that we've kind of gone back and forth on or debated. I'm certainly open to, so I've kind of italicized it, doing the same that we're doing for the bus transportation and offering an option for any partial or donation back to the district, given the impact and given that we still continue to pay the teachers and the paraprofessionals working in this program in full during the full closure period. But that's certainly open to the committee's thoughts on that as well. Great, thank you.
Okay. Surprisingly, I don't disagree with this. Does anybody have concerns or thoughts different than what Mr. Connolly is presenting on this one?
I actually can come up with an argument against doing this, because to me, I mean, listen, we all know that in a perfect world we wouldn't be charging for kindergarten. We'd have full day kindergarten for everyone, but we're not offering refunds of taxes to the rest of the families who are whatever grade they're in, who are getting classes of a sort through the whole year. I can make an argument that, if we're continuing to hold classes, and I'm sorry to admit I don't really know the extent or what opportunities have been offered to the kindergarten classes over the last few months and through June. So it might be helpful to know that. But if they are getting the classes as we determine them to be, I guess I'm not sure that that a refund is necessary or entirely appropriate here.
Other thoughts?
It's a fair point, Rich. Dr. Daly, I'm curious, what is there right now a difference in what's being offered to a part-time kindergarten student versus a full-time kindergarten student in what they're actually receiving?
I would not say that would be the reason for this refund. This is more to do with what was offered or the enrichment kind of activities offered between March 13th and April 6th. So we felt that this would be sort of a different piece of this, of more of a refund to recognize some of that time where there was the enrichment activities but not the actual engagement of a remote learning program.
Okay.
Excellent point.
So, technically, we're also, you could also see that part of the guidance is that we're, now providing a half day of services. That's the guidance. And so I would say that that is also being recognized even during remote learning. If you're paying for a full day of kindergarten, you're receiving a half day. But I do agree with Mr. McGowan's point that is sort of the directive. Everyone in the district, K-12, is receiving that as a school day is being redefined. But this is meant more to recognize some of the loss there from those few weeks when there's no service. Once we resumed the remote learning, we do feel that those students are engaged and they are receiving education. So that's why it's not a complete refund.
Thank you.
Other thoughts? I mean, I think I can argue against Rich on the opposite way and say that, both full and half day are both receiving half day right now, and one of them's paying for it, the other one's not. And so I think it's hard decisions overall. I mean, we have to try to balance a budget. We have to try to keep it here, but ultimately, you know me, I never question what the administration is suggesting on any of these things. So I'd be in favor of it. I got a smile on it, Michael. That's good. Does anybody want to make a motion on this one? Rich, or do you not want to do it since you're Janine? How about you do it?
No, that's fine. I'll make a motion to refund 145 families roughly 50% of their payment for services between April, May, and June for full day and for kindergarten.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Rich?
Based on Patrick's clarification, I'll vote aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, 5-0. Thank you. Mr. Connolly, last one, the full and half day pre-kindergarten.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So last one, and again, it's following the same model essentially as the full day kindergarten, recommending partial refunds given to families who paid the full $6,000 tuition payment, or those half day families who pay a $3,000 tuition payment. The final quarter payment is $1,450 for full day and $725 for half day. Again, we essentially received that by March 1st, and those were deposited, so we do have all the funds. So we are recommending offering a 50% refund, which would essentially be $725 to full day pre-K families and $362.50 to half day. You can kind of see the numbers there and what that means financially. For between 15 full day and 14 half day, it's about $15,950. We wish to communicate this out to families. And again, we're very open to doing the same type of scenario with the option to donate all or a portion back to the districts. Great, thank you.
Okay. Any comments? Okay, perhaps we can have a motion on the full and half day pre-kindergarten.
Sure, I'll make a motion to for the full and half day pre-kindergarten to reimburse 50% of the full day of $1,450, and for half day $725 for the services for April, May, and June.
Second.
Any discussion?
Oh, actually, I stated that incorrectly. For a full day, it should be $725, and for half day, it should be $362.50. Sorry about that.
So as modified, we'll do a roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much. And again, I just to the community, I would just point out, these are hard decisions. I mean, we understand that services were paid for and they're not being given in the same manner as everybody expected. We appreciate that. I mean, with many communities, these issues have been all over their community Facebook pages and everything else. And really, I think our community has been extremely understanding and letting us try to determine this. And so I appreciate the community support, and hopefully some members of this community are in a position where they can make some donations back. At the same time, if your family is struggling and you can't, by all means, you should take the refund that is being given to you. But we're trying to do our best to continue to fund the schools throughout this pandemic as we can. So I appreciate that. And the last thing on here was just for field trips and school travel trips. They'll be handled on a case-by-case basis, refunded as needed. And Mrs. Kane is going to be completing paperwork to refund parents for the Disney trip that was upcoming. Very sad to hear that that's not going to happen, but I know some kids are excited for that. But like everything, it's a challenging time. Mr. Connolly, any final thoughts? Or good? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that was great. I appreciate the discussion from everyone. Thank you.
Rich?
I was just gonna ask about the whether the process for refunding the Washington D.C. trip has gone smoothly from the provider. Has there been any issues there?
So what's been shared with me from the middle school is that they are not aware of any issues. I did, I've been following very closely a lot of conversation among districts as well as some actions that are being taken with the attorneys general really across the country with some of the international trips and also some conversations about local trips. So I have asked the administrative team to fill me in if there's any kind of issues with parents. There's also been some related issues, not reported in North Reading, by the way, any of these yet, but concerning insurance and insurance claims. And so I've asked the administrators to kind of follow up with individuals and to let me know if they're having any kind of issues with insurance and or with refunds with trips and deposits and things. This even extends to events. If we've booked a ballroom or something, and can we get our deposit back, those type of things. And so at this time, all reports are that the vendors that we're working with have been very cooperative. Some have allowed us to move those deposits forward to a future date. And at this time, there's no issues to report, but I do have that sort of an ongoing agenda item for folks to update us. So DC in particular, I've been told that there are not any issues at this time, and the vendor's been very cooperative to this point. So,
thanks, Patrick. I appreciate you having that on your radar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and great question, Rich. Okay, we move to the budget workshop for the fiscal year 2021. Mr. Connolly, I turn it over to you again, I assume.
Yes, great. Thank you, Mr. Buckley. So there were some handouts provided to you before the meeting, which attempts to kind of provide a financial update on where we stand in relation to the present budget gap and so forth. And so Patrick, is there a way I can present my screen? Do you have to stop sharing yours? Is that?
I can try to do that. That's the easiest thing. That's what I'll do. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, I just thought I would kind of pull up a quick little update on where we stand. So to kind of update everyone, so we've been working with the financial planning team over the last several weeks since our last budget workshop, which was April 1st, and we feel that just the most recent meeting occurred last Thursday, and unfortunately we weren't surprised by the news, but we certainly due to a variety of reasons with the state fiscal situation and a need to get more conservative on the local level in terms of our expected income level on around local receipts and licensing and permits and excise taxes and so forth. There is certainly less revenue available, and for the school department, the gap certainly widened from what was $585,000 to actually was about an $886,000 number, which was about $300,000 of essentially all on the revenue side with anticipation now that state aid will be less and local receipts will be less. We've essentially on the fixed cost side, we backed off any assumption that there would be a need to increase the health insurance for new revenue, for new hires and new personnel into the district, assuming that would not be the case under the current financial situation. So if you back out what the revenue plan was carrying in additional health insurance for new positions, we are looking at a present budget gap as of today with the most recent revenue plan of a little over $811,000. So what I've included here is a kind of a brief update. The items that are above the line were all items that we kind of workshopped and discussed at the April 1st workshop. So these are all items that you've seen before. Certainly backing off on the new requests that were part of our original FY21 budget: teaching learning coordinator, reading specialists, the floater custodian, the desire to hire a central office support a staff member to help around data and some HR needs, and that was really going to be a consolidation of two positions. So that are currently vacant. So holding off on doing that. And then there were two academic teaching positions that we had discussed that, due to retirements, we would look not to fill. And then we had added some money, as a reminder, to help our technology device replacement plan. So we would defer the addition of that line item to help for device replacement next year in the amount of $60,000. I'll just remind you that it's not the worst thing next year, just because we do have access to a state grant that was earmarked through the efforts of our state representative, Brad Jones. So we do have funds to turn to for that, at least for this year. And then we had added an elementary position due to anticipated some class sizes, so we would hold off on doing that. So as a reminder, those were all the items we kind of talked about at that April 1st workshop. Some of the items that we've added to this list, the administrative team got together on Friday afternoon following the finance planning team meeting, and we put our heads together to see where else we could turn. Again, none of these decisions are easy. Everything on this list is difficult. These are not, as we all know and can appreciate, easy decisions. We are still in the process of workshopping. We're going to get together probably later this week. Principals are kind of putting their heads together. We had a very late in the afternoon meeting on Friday after a long week to try to workshop the news that we got Thursday morning at the finance planning team meeting. So we got to come back together, but what we're prepared to do this evening is, these are 4 additional items that we did come to some level of consensus with at that meeting, and everyone's putting their heads together and continuing to look at things this week. But some of the additional items that were not talked about at the April 1st workshop was if we were to delay the hire of the director of facilities position. So as you know, we have a retirement in that position, so that position will be vacant as of July 1. We've posted and we've gotten in applicants, but if we were to delay the hire of that at least 2 months, there's an area of savings we could anticipate for that. We've looked at the student services department, and certainly the director of student services, Cynthia Kona, has weighed in. We do have some vacancy in that position, and we feel we could take a hard look there and restructure some of the vacancies around potentially some team chair positions, and look to use the coordinators a little bit differently next year to save essentially a 0.5 FTE position, which would compute to some savings that are noted here on the document. We've all talked about the assistant superintendent, and certainly something that we know that we absolutely need that vacancy. But if we defer the official hire date again until September 1, there's an area of savings that could be achieved. And then looking at the high school, we again, there's a vacant position, or a position due to become vacant at the end of this year. And if we looked maybe not to fill that position fully, and looked at a 0.6 and tried to there's a decline in enrollment at the high school, we could capture some savings there. So all being said, when you look at all the items here on the list, we get to a little over $672,000. We're still just shy of $140,000 shy of where we would need to be, that we would need to continue to look at and put our heads together. As the note says here, we've certainly continued to workshop these items, and we're going to continue to look at it, all areas in the coming weeks. But we do remain short of a balanced budget by a little over $138,000. It's fair to say, any further reductions that were talked about by the administrative team would certainly be impacting, program offerings, potential class sizes at across the board, elementary and secondary level, or potentially taking on additional financial risk. So, so here we are at May 4th having this budget workshop. We wanted to kind of see where the committee was. The finance planning team is going to continue to review available revenues. We're going to meet weekly. We anticipate having an update this Thursday and then another update the following week, next week, as we get some updates at the state level and so forth. But we anticipate bringing a final list back to the group at the May 18th meeting. And hopefully things change and this number can be shortened. But at this point, we're not extremely hopeful of that, to be honest. But this is where we stand. So with that being said, I'll kind of turn it over to Chairman Buckley or the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. The only things I would add here would be, first and foremost, the way that we got to this budget, the 886 gap down to 811. I mean, we reduced the state aid that we're getting by about 5% less than we got this year, and a lot of local receipts, as you said. We think that's being somewhat conservative, but it could be even worse than that. And there's been discussion about if we can't have town meeting, if we have to go to a 1/12 budget, or the state budget very well might not be prepared in time to actually get real revenue numbers. So even this has some risk in there. I have comments and thoughts on this, but I don't want to, I want to open it up to other people first. And so, kind of go around and see if people have thoughts or comments on any of these suggested cuts. Mr. McGowan, you're usually not shy to start, and I can see you on the screen. So I'll ask you if you have any questions or thoughts first.
Sure, and let me preface my remarks by reminding the public who might be listening that this is a workshop, and similar to a brainstorming session, some of the things I'm going to ask are just to throw the idea out there. They can be shot down, and that's fine. But so I don't know if we've ever looked at some more drastic measures. For instance, we spent a lot of time talking about buses already, but would it be possible to severely reduce the amount of busing we provide to the community? What would be the arguments against and for that? I guess I'm just trying to think of some sort of bigger ways to attack this that have a less of an impact on especially learning, especially any teaching positions. So I'll just throw that one thing out there. Is there any appetite for it? Does it make any sense? Is it practical? Is it impractical? And just see what people think.
Mr. Connolly, you want to respond?
Yeah, I can provide some context of potential impact, and it's certainly something that I would say we've looked at. So as you know, we do require 10 buses that operate, daily to transport, all the students, and we do transport a lot of students a day. I think we're up to over 1,300 students get transported by the means of bus transportation on a daily basis. this service is certainly not cheap, and it's, based on the market in the industry, it's been getting more expensive as of late due to a variety of factors. The most immediate impact of that is it would certainly put, we would not be able to meet the demand of the number of families that desire busing, and it would certainly put more cars on the road on a daily basis. So certainly traffic congestion up and around the schools during pickup and drop off time would be greater. Many of the schools, as you know, don't necessarily always have the safest means of getting to school in certain areas with lack of sidewalks on some of the main roads. So I think there's certainly a safety standpoint to be cognizant of and aware of. We're required by law to, at the very least, provide free transportation to families in grade kindergarten through grade 6 that live more than 2 miles away. So that, at the very minimum, would need 5 buses. Again, the fees that we collect probably pays for, at this point, close to between 4 and 5. So if we were to do away with what we're providing from an optional standpoint, what we don't require by law to provide, there would be maybe a small level of savings there based on the user fee that we're currently collecting, but it would certainly be something probably in the range of between $40,000 and $50,000. But I think it's going to certainly put more cars on the road, which I think is a concern, and from a safety standpoint, it's going to potentially have an impact as well.
Mr. Connolly, would it be fair to the times and the routes for those 5 buses would be substantially possibly increased if you're having to run longer routes for those students for whom it's required?
Yeah, that's true. So it's kind of like a domino effect. The 10 buses, and we've looked at it, and every year I'm sort of like, is there a way we can do it with 9? And we try to run it and try to make it work. It's just with the ridership on each bus, it's never feasible, and I don't see that changing for next year. But it is something that we look at every year, and it's one of the reasons why we're actually trying to get the data in earlier. It was challenging when data was coming in August to even consider that, but now we're trying to get it in at the beginning of, in May, and get it by June 1st, so we can analyze those types of things a little bit better. But I definitely think that's possible, because we run that 4-tiered approach, and if you eliminate a bus, you're potentially now impacting, small changes in the bus world have big impact, and we're potentially impacting us getting all the buses to school on time, on a consistent basis, for sure.
So to recap it, basically, we're going to need 5 buses no matter what, just to meet our legal obligations.
Correct.
And in order for those 5 buses to be able to service the three schools, we might need to play around with schedules and school start times and all those things that might be impacted because we didn't have the flexibility of and basically those schools, every student in the elementary schools has to be serviced, right, within with the mileage, in terms of regardless of the mileage.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's basically
that's correct.
The population of all the schools. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Chris, any comments or thoughts?
Yeah. Just a question regarding the idea of potentially delaying the appointment of the assistant superintendent position. If that was an avenue we were to go down, how do you guys anticipate, how does the administration, I should say, anticipate that affecting hiring a replacement, since they're all internal candidates?
So,
let
me address this,
Dr. Daly?
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah.
So I'll just address that, Chris. It's a good question. This is obviously not an area that we're looking to go, but based upon the conversations we've had with this group before, and the fact that it's still sort of a current topic, we felt that it is something that I could offer. A lot of this burden will fall directly on me, especially during the summer season with the grants. We're going through a coordinated program review that would have been this spring that now is pushed off to the summer. It's also the hiring season. There's just a lot of things that we're doing. We're not getting the HR position. We're also, I think what a lot of people don't fully understand about this position is how much of the human resources piece is done by this role, not the financial piece as much as the other side of human resources. One reason why I've put it on here as an offer, in addition to just being something that I feel a lot of this, each school is contributing ideas, and this is an idea from the superintendent's office. But I also feel that given the transitions, both the end of the year and the beginning of the year, given our internal candidates, I think there is some value to having one of those folks, if they are to continue, to be interested in the position, to be there when school opens. And so, this does say delay the appointment. I'm not 100% sure that I would delay the appointment as much as the start date. And I know when Michael presented it, that's how he presented it as well. There's still a part of me that thinks I may make a decision and make an appointment, but then allow that person to continue in the role that he or she is currently in order to help with some of those transitions back to school. So this is not something I'm really in favor of, and this is not something that we can sustain. I put this out there as a proposal because I did not want to do a mid-year replacement last year, which is the reason why. But I think the very unique circumstances right now also of trying to conduct a search for a principal or a director at this time is challenging. And so for all of those reasons, I could support in this very unique budget time an extension of our current situation, which would involve myself doing a lot of the responsibilities and also having some help from some of the other folks involved.
Sure. And I appreciate that, really every one of these ideas here is a bad thing to lose. These are all, I don't want to say it this way, they're all bad ideas. They're just the least bad ideas, the things that we can maybe tolerate giving up. I would just be concerned, like you. I would hate to see the delay in the appointment, and I would just be a little concerned about how well we could find a replacement principal, for example, to start September. I don't know how easy or difficult that is as compared to the norm, and that's just something I was concerned of.
Yes, I agree. Those are all part of the challenges. So it's certainly part of what we're thinking about.
Great. Mrs. Botwell, any questions or thoughts?
I don't have any questions. I mean, it's defeating across the board, right? You don't want to see or be in this position. And I know the due diligence was done to really, think about what we were trying to put forward and understanding we need to cut it, as well as thinking outside of the box on ways that we can, and obviously these are thinking outside of the box on ways that we could reduce the gap even more. So I appreciate the hard work that went into this. I know it's challenging. And I'm also just taking away today that you're still working on it, right? The number is not hard coded yet. You still have to work through it. We still have a delta. We're not even sure how significant that delta is going to be. So I'm just looking forward to seeing where we land and what some of the more solidified recommendations will be.
Great. Thank you. Mrs. Imbriano?
Part of my question was asked by Chris, but the other part was delaying the hire of the facilities director. I mean, is that a safe thing to do given what happened during the summer last year where the membranes or whatever went? I'm assuming that would be something that person would be watchful over. And is there someone within the administration or the custodians that has a pretty good handle on it, that you're pretty secure that it can be delayed till September?
It's a great question. Janine, absolutely. So we've certainly talked about those things. Again, similarly, it's not ideal or something we want to do by any means. Just trying to minimize any further impact to education in the classroom. I think it's fair to say during the July and August months, and I think those months are going to look probably very different than they ever have, with probably not much any activity in the buildings other than cleaning and the maintenance work. Hopefully that's all going to, maintenance will resume in those summer weeks. I think it's fair to say that those duties would certainly fall on myself, with some assistance by folks that we've been able to get familiar with a lot of those systems from a mechanical standpoint, as well as the wastewater treatment facility that we can rely on. I think there are some people that are in-house that are part of the custodial staff that are aware that we would turn to, and during these weeks. Certainly rely on our contractors as well. And then there's also the potential, and I've factored in some of this in that number, that we would potentially the current person would potentially stay on a very part-time basis, a day and a half a week to come in and check in and assist during that July and August time period. So that's the best approach we would have to kind of handle those situations.
You'd like to feel like the membrane is not terribly stressed, given the lack of people in the building over the last few months, but who knows? Right.
I mean, we replaced the membranes. There's not a lot of activity, and those types of things shouldn't be stressed. It's actually, we're hoping it's maybe a good time to do some of the maintenance and the cleaning of the tubes and those things that need to be cleaned on a annual basis. That we'll do that, so that we're hoping the plant operates pretty smoothly through the summer months. We're trying to use this downtime to a time to shut the plant down and do the turbine cleaning and the tube cleaning and everything, the membrane, everything that needs to be done on a maintenance perspective. Because of the lack of flow, it's almost easier for us to get in and do that now. So the summer should theoretically be smoother.
So my thoughts on that. I mean, first of all, I appreciate the work that Mr. Connolly, Dr. Daly, and the administrative team has done to try to get here. I mean, any way you look at this stinks. I'd just like to point out a few things. Number one, first and foremost, I just want to point out that if we really examine what is being proposed here, basically the leaders of our district are taking on more work. That's what's happening, because when we eliminate the director of facilities, who's going to step into that role? Michael Connolly is going to step into that role. When we restructure student services, who's that going to fall on? It's going to fall on Cynthia Conant, who's in charge of student services. When we look at the delay of the appointment of the assistant superintendent, who's that going to fall on? That's going to fall on Dr. Daly. And leadership is important, and I think it says a great deal about the three of you, that the three of you, your proposal to us is basically for you guys to take on more work. And it should be noted that if you were to look at the areas that are going to have the most strain right now, we're going to try to be opening a school in September with brand new protocols for cleaning and everything else, which would usually fall on a director of facilities. To be training a new person, to be trying to implement new protocols at that point in time is going to be hard. Looking at students that need extra services that have been out of school for 3.5 months and then coming back, that's going to fall on student services. And who knows what the curriculum is going to be like going forward. And so I would just like to first and foremost recognize that basically all we've done to try to cut more here is put more on our leaders. And I will say from my standpoint, I mean, I think it's great leadership on your part. I also very much worry about overstressing our leaders in this district. I think, we've been very fortunate to have you guys as part of this district, and I appreciate you stepping up. I hope it's very clear. I don't think the delay of these appointments can happen beyond the beginning of the school year. I really don't, because everything's going to be changing. We talked a lot about the assistant superintendent position, but director of facilities as well. I mean, Michael Connolly is in charge of a lot already. We can't have him also trying to run facilities. And so I guess that's my first comments for you guys. I appreciate the leadership, because that is what a true leader does, is when times are tough, they take on more. The last 138, I just don't know. I don't know where we go with that. I mean, it's clear that we're getting into class sizes. We're getting into the things that we never want to touch. Already, we are not providing level services next year. There's no question about that. We're cutting positions. It looks about 3.6 in-class teachers. We're cutting digital learning specialists, I think, as part of this, which is, has been critical at this time right now. Anything more than this, I just don't know. And I think at some point in time, we need to look to the town and say, we've collected rainy day funds, and, we've cut to where we think we can cut. And at some point in time, we have to go back and say, we have to tap into rainy day funds, because, I just don't know that we can cut much further. I mean, we've cut everything we can that's outside of the classroom at this point in time. And, this district has, for years, been trying to get to a point where we have, a decent student to class, teacher to student ratio. We've done so much work. I don't want to, take a huge step back because of this, but I don't know. That's just my thoughts. I tend to go on too long at times, but I appreciate the leadership from, Dr. Daly, Michael Connolly, and Cynthia Conan in particular for, basically agreeing to step up and take most of that burden on yourselves. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to echo what Mr. Buckley said, and really point that out, that this at a glance can look like level services because no one's losing their job on this, but we're losing a little more than 3.5 teachers from this. No one's losing their job from it, and that's important, but that's 3.5 left teachers that will be teaching, and that it's impossible for that not to have some impact on learning, even if that is our reality.
Any other comments, thoughts, questions on this?
Scott, that was an excellent point. The Mike, Patrick, and Cynthia taking on more responsibility, working harder than they are already, just to save monies and positions and programs. So, point well made.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you everybody for your thoughts on this. And obviously, still work to be done. We're not at a balanced budget. We don't even know if this is the revenue plan, but I think we really need to really look at, as a town, as a community, as a school district, we really need to look at, what more we can cut without really hurting the students. And, I appreciate getting this close. I mean, when we look at what we were looking for, and not even our recommended budget of what we really need going forward, but even just a modified level services budget, we were asked to cut almost $900,000 out. We're down to $138,000. That is a significant cut from what what this district is saying we think we need academically. And I just don't know if we can get much further than this, to be perfectly honest. And I know the town is also struggling on their side, the municipal side, but I don't know. I don't know where we go from there, but I appreciate that work that's been done so far. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. So if there's no more on the budget, we'll move on. We have an update on the superintendent evaluation. Am I turning it over to you, Mr. McGowan, or Mr. Papa Vasilio?
Oh, well pronounced. So yes, this is the formative evaluation for our formative step in the evaluation process for Dr. Daly as our new superintendent of schools. We as a committee have looked over his goals as he's created, and also the evidence that he's submitted that he's on the path of those goals right now. And this is just a chance for us to share some of our thoughts or raise any questions without really passing any judgment or rating any performance, but really just pointing things out that we've noticed and providing comment. I've compiled comments from the school committee, and I'll just share those collectively. And if any individual members of the committee want to jump in after each of the 6 goals, then feel free to jump in at that point. Looking at goal 1, which is Dr. Daly's professional practice goal, and I think just for the record, I'll quickly read the goals out as I come to them for the context of people following along. So to ensure the continued highest level of effective strategic leadership for the North Reading Public Schools, the superintendent will continue to engage in and support professional development activities that will further develop his skills in strategy development, data analysis, instructional leadership, leadership team development, and school committee superintendent relations. Some comments from the committee basically reflect the idea that this goal, when first brought up by Dr. Daly, seemed like it's a great goal for kind of getting into the job, for kind of a training regimen, learning what's going to be going on. And of course, nobody suspected that Dr. Daly would be thrown into the deep end quite like he has with COVID-19. Clearly, he's been doing an excellent job with that, and of facilitating with other communities, basing his decisions off of what he learns. Some of the thoughts that come up are wondering if part of this goal should be adapted toward the assistant superintendent of curriculum in terms of working with him for professional development, him or her, excuse me, and just general praise that unlike other goals that might have been delayed due to COVID-19, this goal was accelerated, and Dr. Daly has so far done an exceptional job of keeping up with it. Moving on to goal 2. Dr. Daly's goal is that the superintendent, quote, will work to create the conditions necessary for all students to achieve at the highest levels. By the end of the 2019-2020 school year, the superintendent will review each of the school improvement plans for the 5 schools and collaborate on the individual goals of the principals at each school. Strong collaboration with school principals and other administrators on the development of administrator goals, activities, and benchmarks will serve to establish a framework for elevating student achievement through targeted efforts. Here, some thoughts were interested in learning how this practice goal has changed without school meeting in person. Some of the evidence submitted was the idea of instituting a half an hour per week in which administrators would be, excuse me, I don't have the evidence document in front of me, would be available to kind of meet and work, and has this turned into a virtual meeting. In other ways, what's the impact on the development of school improvement plans through the school councils, and how has the work with administrators on developing school improvement targets been progressed? This is for all of these. Dr. Daly is clearly on the path towards meeting all these goals, but these were some of the questions brought out.
Chris, should I comment on that, or wait till the end?
You know, it's really I'm in trying to model this a little different, both in the virtual format and also just in this being formative. Yeah, please chime in anytime you have anything to add. And again, I'll say that we're only offering this as questions we're
sure
kind of exploring as we go. If now is an appropriate time, or sometime between now and July, really whatever works best for
sure.
you.
I'll just jump in on this one quickly. My thought with this goal is that maybe for the evidence through July is that I would modify it a little bit to take a look at what this would look like with remote learning, with remote class visits, with remote check-ins for evaluation for principals. And just to clarify that, you know, I've been pretty clear with principals even before all of this happened that the changes would not be measurably demonstrated in their school improvement plans for this year, because the idea is that we're gathering this data, we're making these changes, we're going to update our district plan over the summer, and then those next plans that are developed would be very different. But all of those things will be incorporated, and you might see certainly there's going to be some differences to the school improvement plans reflecting the situation we're in. So you will see a little bit of a difference, but not a major difference until next year.
And can I just ask real quick, Dr. Daly, are school councils still active during this for the last few months?
They have been in different ways. There were some discussions around posting meetings and things, and so they had to go virtual. It's similar to what we've done. They still have been active, and they still are working to draft those plans that would be presented to you in June, and to get that feedback.
Thank you.
And so I've given them, like I said, I gave them sort of a streamlined version of, what to include, maybe a few suggestions, and I believe that everything's on course for that.
Great, thank you. And yes, please feel free as I'm going, or after each goal, we'll pause if Dr. Daly, if you have anything to add or share, and any members of the committee. I'm doing my best to summarize the number of views, and if I miss one or you'd like to add to it, please just jump in. Dr. Daly's third goal for strategic for district improvement. Sorry, the first goal for district improvement is third goal overall. The superintendent will use his entry findings to facilitate the development of the school district's new strategic plan, NRPS 2025, a strategy for the future that includes a shared vision and strategic direction for the North Reading Public Schools. The strategic plan includes identified objectives in the areas of teaching and learning, student support services, and technology integration. The strategic plan serves as a blueprint for elevating student achievement and providing an overall advancement of the school district throughout the year 2025. Dr. Daly has indicated that it makes sense to pause this goal, and the committee as a whole thinks that absolutely makes perfect sense given the circumstances of COVID-19. With one question regarding hearing any thoughts about what our new reality, how our new reality will impact the long-term planning process.
Absolutely. So that would be incorporated into what I submit in July for sure. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Here we are. District Improvement Goal 2, the superintendent will actively participate in the comprehensive review of the school district's emergency operations plan through collaboration with both school and public safety personnel. New initiatives will be implemented as applicable. So clearly this, like all of our goals, or many of the goals, have been really affected by COVID-19. Dr. Daly highlighted in this evidence the cybersecurity grant program. Although this raises questions in what challenges the district has faced with cybersecurity, and now with our heavy reliance on remote learning. Has the grant program been postponed? And really the idea that perhaps the improved need for cybersecurity that's now so much greater than it was really ever before in history, perhaps this could be re-emphasized towards the end of the school year.
Yep, and we have carried on, and I think you're right. It is. There's a part of me that thought long and hard about, is it too much to ask anyone to continue? But we're in a good place. We had such a high completion rate already that we opted to continue with the program, and I think people are really valuing those pieces. And I've had some teachers write to me even this week based on some terrible stories that have been in the news about Zoom bombing and those things that we may have seen. Where they really see the connection to what they're learning in the classes and what they're doing with kids. So I think it is important now as much as ever. So.
Excellent. The next goal, District Improvement Goal 3. The superintendent will work to increase the use of social media and other technologies to serve as methods of communication and as informational resources among and between the school district and the community. Here, again, obviously COVID-19 has affected all of these goals and really every element of teaching and learning throughout the district. But here, Dr. Daly has really shined in his open communication, as well as the varied media through which he carries that, making sure that members of the community who might not favor one method are able to still receive communication. Been consistently clear, thoughtful, and compassionate.
you.
And for the final goal, the superintendent will lead, co-lead, or otherwise participate in social emotional learning activities that serve to address the social emotional needs of students. Here, the goal is obviously always important, and really, if possible, even more so now, given the way teaching practices have had to adapt. Most of the action plan that was conceived by Dr. Daly was conceived prior to COVID-19, and therefore somewhat fits, but perhaps could be better adapted now to make sure that the social emotional needs of students are being met. I'm phrasing that poorly. They're clearly being met, but the ways in which that's being demonstrated by Dr. Daly in his action plan, there might be more clear ways to highlight what an excellent job the school has been doing in meeting those needs, given the changing environment of this crisis.
Sure. Yeah,
and really just a way to highlight the extraordinary steps taken by teachers and taken to recognize students, especially those transitioning at the end of the year, are an important part of that.
Sure. I'll just note, even this week, Cynthia Conant and Dr. O'Connell are working with me to plan the last phase of the training, which now obviously is going to be virtual. And we have sort of a good hybrid plan there for that third phase of the training. So I think it's fair to say what I'm hearing in feedback makes a lot of sense, is that for the July summative portfolio that I'll submit at the end of the school year, to put everything through the lens of the current situation we're in, and maybe there's some modifications to goals to reflect the situation we're in, as well as the original goals as they were intended, which I think makes a lot of sense for the second submission.
Great, yeah, and I think overall, in really in each of these goals, and taken as a whole, progress is clearly evidenced in everything submitted, that Dr. Daly is on track for all of these goals, and is doing an excellent job even before considering the over and above extraordinarily difficult situation he's in, and how tremendously he's been coping with that and leading our schools.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback from everyone.
Any comments from the committee? And I would say you're doing a great job, Dr. Daly. I mean, I think we all kind of said it the same way, where, I think you were on track for the goals, or you were meeting the goals already. And, we're all throwing this wrench, and some of the goals became even more important or changed a little bit. But, I think you've been great at adapting, and appreciate having you as the leader of our district right now.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move on to routine matters. So we can go ahead.
Sheepishly, I need to admit that I forgot to do it, but obviously I think he's more than just on target. But so I just wanted to put that out there. I think he's doing a wonderful, wonderful job.
Thank you very much.
It's okay, Janine. For what it's worth, I'm on the evaluation committee, and I just did it like at 5 o'clock today. So
you guys were going to get away with it. I was nice.
You did a great job keeping it neutral, Chris.
Right.
Janine, I'm in the same boat if it makes you feel better.
Yeah, Dr. Daly, excellent job. We've been thanking.
I think what we're saying is I evaluate you, Patrick. Sorry. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the minutes. So for routine matters, we have the minutes. So we need a motion on the April 1st. Janine will kind of look to you here. A motion to accept the April 1st, 2020 minutes.
Certainly. For the April 1st, 2020 minutes for the regular open session. Oh my gosh, I just totally went blank. I make a motion to accept the open session regular minutes for April 1st, 2020, as written.
I second.
Second.
Okay, Chris with the second. Anybody notice anything on this? Any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call. Janine?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Diana,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion passes unanimous. And Janine for the April 13th, 2020.
I make a motion to accept the open session public hearing, budget hearing for April 13 as written.
Chris,
Sorry, sleep at the wheel. I second.
okay, any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Janine,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Diana,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Again, passes 5-0, unanimous. Thank you. Budget update. Michael, I know it says none here. My only question for you is, can you update us quickly on the school meals and lunches? Been a little bit of a pet project of mine. I think we were originally at like 45 meals being served, breakfasts and lunches each. What are we at right now?
So yeah, thanks to some really great teamwork, and I appreciate yourself, Mr. Buckley, for getting the word out to families, via variety of channels. We are up to about 170 to 175 on average, both breakfast and lunch meals a day. So they continue to do really, really good work. It continues to benefit many North Reading families. And I don't know if you may have noticed on Friday, but Friday was actually declared by the state and Governor Baker as School Lunch Worker Hero Day, to recognize the good work of our school lunch workers during the school closure period for providing mail service and emergency mail and grab and go. And North Reading has certainly been a big part of that movement. And we've been they've been really doing exceptional work in providing a really important service to many families. So we did take some time to celebrate their work on Friday, and I think they were very appreciative. But I want to extend my sincere thanks to Anna McGovern, who's been the food service director, through Chartwells, who's been overseeing the food service associates in their work, and as well as the drivers that have continued to come in and deliver meals as well. So it's been a great operation, and it's been a success story. And we've been increasing the participation, and we're getting federal revenue in through the USDA program. And I believe Dr. Daly is going to share with you, I'll just maybe a little bit later, but we also was notified on Friday afternoon that we did receive a grant that we had applied for in the tune of $4,250 to help us fund the cost of our grab and go program. So we had filled out an application 2 or 3 weeks ago. We weren't sure, and we were interviewed on Friday afternoon, and we were notified late Friday and that our application was, so that's exciting news as well. Great.
I just wanted to jump. That was something I was going to speak to you later, and that's great, Michael, that you mentioned it. I want to thank Anna McGovern and our entire food service as well. The food service lunch here today is certainly a true statement, and I received several emails from parents on that day and around that day, just congratulating our staff and wishing them the absolute best for all that they're doing for kids. I think our parents too have adjusted to the difference in the numbers, and there were some changes that came across that took some adjusting, but our food staff adapted so well to that. I mean, when you increase that number, you also have, you're making more lunches, there's more people to serve, there's more people to get that are in need, and I think we've made all those adjustments, and our team has done great. And Anna is not just a leader, she's actually in there with her sleeves rolled up, serving lunches and working with parents every day, as is our whole staff. And the same goes for Michael, really working with Anna and getting that grant and getting that funding is huge for us. And, even just getting the advertising out, putting things on the website, designing packages, this wouldn't happen without Michael's leadership. And I want to give him a shout out there as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any other, and thank you, Michael, for the work on the grant and everything with food service. Any other budget updates, Michael, or we pretty much budgeted out for the day?
Yeah, none at this time, but thank you.
Okay. Dr. Daly, any staffing or bids and donations?
None at this time.
Okay, so move on to subcommittee updates. I don't know if we usually update on CIPC. Is there anything you want to mention about CIPC? Anybody?
I was at the last meeting. We continued to meet virtually, and we have made a decision that essentially almost all of the items, with the exception of just a few, are going to be deferred until the October town meeting. I know we had talked a little bit about that at the last meeting. Although there's one school item that is going to go forward at this town meeting or to the select board for approval at the next select board meeting, and consistent with the town request. So there's the two pickup vehicles that are mainly used for snow plowing, both on the town side and on the school side. They're both the same year, the same number of mileage, the same wear and tear. Those two vehicles, due to the urgency around having them for the snow and ice season, are going to go on the June town meeting, or be recommended to go on the June town meeting. And then I believe the town hall boiler, which is in very difficult shape, is going to go. And then everything else that's not being either funded through an enterprise fund or with the town road program with Chapter 90 funds is going to be deferred until the fall town meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be bad news overall from CIPC, but hopefully that is not correct. And finance planning team, for the update, I think we've talked a lot about where we got to for the revenue when we went through the budget workshop, so I think there's nothing more. Subcommittee schedule on Thursday, May 7th at 8:15 a.m. We have a finance planning team meeting again. For administrative report, Dr. Daly, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. I do believe that just about everything I was going to speak to was covered at some other places. I'm going to speak about the graduation conversation, which we had Emily earlier. I was going to speak about this grant. I will mention one other grant that we received. I mentioned a few months ago, but I just want to give an update on that. That's the digital literacy computer science that Dr. Downs has been working on. Some great collaborative work. I know he's very excited about the work, and I'm very impressed how our teachers have found the time to do this work despite all the enhancements of having to do remote learning. And they're still having some great collaborative conversations around the expansion of our digital literacy computer science. And it's really, just a testament to how dedicated our team is and our teachers and our digital learning team to expanding the goals and vision around digital learning computer science. And so there's a lot of professional development that this grant's going to be able to cover, and we're very excited about those opportunities. So it's been great to watch them. There were several days last week where they had several hours of engagement, and it was, I was able to listen in and participate in some of that as well. It's been really well received.
Excellent, thank you. For correspondence, none at this time, Dr. Daly?
None at this time.
Okay, for future business. So tomorrow we have an executive session meeting. So for the members of the committee, you should have 2 links there. So everybody will have to go into the public meeting first, then we have to vote to go into an executive session for purposes of negotiations with unions. And then we'll go to a separate link for that. On May 18th, we're supposed to have a school committee meeting with a budget vote. While that's on the agenda, I don't really know what's going on. I mean, town meeting has been pushed to June, and so I hope that we can finalize some numbers by then, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. We'll see. And then June 1st, we have a meeting. Both of them are 6:30 p.m. There'll be, phone numbers sent out to the public and links to the committee. I think that's all. So
Mr. Buckley, just to tomorrow's point, I will send a reminder email right before 3:30 p.m., which will be the first meeting, and folks can click on that one. And then once we're in that meeting, I will send the other one. So then there's just a little less confusion. I know there's lots of different emails coming out with all these different sessions between tonight and tomorrow. So that'll be the reminder. I'll send one out right before 3:30, and then I'll send another one after 3:30, so we're not confused.
Okay, thank you. So if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, Janine and
I'll second.
Rich will second. There we go. So roll call vote. Janine,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Diana,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. Unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone, and for any members of the community that listen. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a great evening,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.
Have a
Bye,
good
all.
night.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.